And we are on.
Okay, you ready?
We're ready.
Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome to the Ad Hoc Advisory Charter Review Board, Charter Revision Board. This is like our 13th meeting, so I'm gonna stop counting and just say it's our first meeting of 2024. How's that? Welcome, hope everybody
It
had a
only
great
feels like
holiday.
our 100th.
You're that far along, it doesn't matter, right? You stop counting. But anyway, I hope everybody had a great holiday and welcome to the new year. Clerk, you want to take it away?
Yes, sir. Mr. Band,
Present.
Ms. Basner,
Here.
Mr. Gonzalez,
Present.
Ms. Latone,
Present.
Mr. Rabin,
Present.
Mr. Starkman. Here. Sir, you have a full board.
Excellent. Welcome, everybody, again. Do we have a full board or is it?
Yes, we do. So that
Who's Brian?
we have been replaced, so as of right
So
now.
she's been absent.
Yep.
So, okay, forward. Okay. First item is the minutes. Anybody have a
Move.
motion?
Second.
Second by Elizabeth. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No, then we will reflect that as a unanimous vote for the minutes. Our second item on the agenda is the distinguished supervisor of elections here. Welcome, Christina. It's good to see you. I guess this stems from a referral from the commission following a request from the supervisor of elections office. So why don't I just hand it over to Ralph or Christina to kind of walk us through what's being requested in this item, and then we can get into the nitty gritty.
So this is Christina White, Supervisor of Elections. Right now, the city presently has its election 2 weeks apart. It's general election and it's runoff election, and that has been causing problems for the Supervisor of Elections. We have our elections along with Miami and Hialeah. So the largest cities in the county pretty much have their elections on the same day. I know Ms. White has said that she's gonna make the same request of the other two cities.
With that, yes, first of all, thank you for taking up this topic. It's an important one. It's one that I think is long overdue. Ralph and Jean and I mean, we've been talking about this for years. Having a 2-week runoff really it's an unsustainable model. And it's one that I think nobody benefits from, not the department, because it puts us under a tremendous amount of stress to turn your election around in 2 weeks. More important than us is the voters. The vote by mail voters in particular are really, I don't like to use the word disenfranchised because I think that it's extraordinarily easy to vote in the state of Florida, but they are put at a disadvantage. And then also the candidates, in this last election, it happens every time, but in this last election, it was Thanksgiving week. And there was a lot of pressure that was being put on us to give data to the candidates so that they could do their part. And we weren't ready with it yet, right? We're like Ralph said, we're running Miami Beach, Homestead, Hialeah, large cities, about a third of the electorate. It's a lot of post-election processing, a lot of things we need to do to wrap up election 1 before we can even consider going into election 2. And so, the request, not just for you guys, but for every city in the county that has a runoff 2 or 3 weeks out, we're going to be making that push to hopefully work collaboratively. And we're requesting a minimum of 4 weeks. Elections administration has changed so much since that 2 weeks was I guess allowed at some point by the department and then codified in the charter. Just to name a few, now voters have the ability to cure their vote by mail ballot if they forget to sign it or if their signature doesn't match. And so we have to wait until, and they have until 5 p.m. on the Thursday after the election. So even though people think the election's over on Tuesday, it's really not, because we're waiting for, hundreds and countywide thousands of people to hopefully cure these ballots. And then we have provisional ballots.
And do they get notified if there's a problem?
They get notified, right? And so we really are not even certifying the election until Friday. And races are getting closer and closer. Recounts are becoming more often. And we've done dozens of recounts. So again, that's pushing it out further if you're in that situation. So your first election's on Tuesday. We're not really even thinking about preparing your ballot until like Saturday. So we've already lost days there. And, you know, it's a very complex situation, so we have to, get your candidates, proof it, send it to the printer, test ballots before we can even think about printing them and sending them out. It's gotten a little bit more complicated on our end because of the way we used to print, and I don't want to get too technical on you, but we used to print by style, meaning that everybody in your city would get the same exact style. Now we print by precinct. So now we're having to print 21, because you have 21 different precincts, and then proof all of those, right? And then send it to the printer, get the ballots back from the printer, prepare them, quality assure, do our public testing. Make sure everything's good with that, and then turn around for early voting. And early voting starts on the Friday before your runoff. So, I mean, we really have like 7 days to prepare for your election. That's on our end. And this is work that is very detail oriented, that is expensive for you guys because we're having to work overtime and have additional people doing work. And there's zero tolerance for error. And so I don't think that we should be doing work to this degree and us be under a crunch time for it, right? It's just I've started using this recently, and I don't know if you'll think it's funny or not, but you don't go to a plastic surgeon and say, like, go as fast as you can, or like have your contractor build your house as fast as you can. Usually you're like, take your time, go as slow as you need. Get it right. Get it right, right? Like, I will give you more time because I want you to do it right and thoroughly. And so, you know, there's all these changes that have happened in election law and the way that we prepare for elections that really is making it harder and harder to get to that 2 weeks. And then, you know, again, going back to the vote by mail voters, we have a couple of things working against us here. The post office has come out with new standards, and they say that for local mail, it takes 1 to 3 days for a ballot to get out and back. So that's 6 days. And that's if you're local. If you're in another state, it's 3 to 5. I tend to think it's a bit longer than that. And so by the time, I mean, if you just time it out, like, we're not starting until Saturday, and then we put the ballots in the mail, and then it takes 1 to 3 days to get to your voters. They would literally have to vote that ballot that day, essentially, and get it back to us in order for it to make it back by the statutory deadline of election day at 7 p.m. And so that is not really a way to continue doing elections, I think. There is a large number of people who have their ballots rejected because they are late, a higher percentage in your runoff than your election. I have some stats here for you to help with that. And so providing us with that additional time is going to help resolve a lot of these issues that we're dealing with, right?
So your the suggestion that your office is making is what, 4 weeks? At a minimum.
My request is a minimum of 4 weeks. A minimum of 4 weeks.
Christine, can I push back? I'm very sympathetic to your position, and I think I probably agree to it. My question is, with the election, sometimes the second week in November, 4 weeks later, we're pushing up against Christmas.
That's where I was going to. It's not so much Christmas, is you'll either, for 4 weeks, you're either Thanksgiving week, following the Thanksgiving week, or the first week, which is Basel. Either which, in Miami Beach at least, is difficult.
Completely agree with you. And so there's 3 options for you to consider. One is my request. The second one we'll get into. I think that was the commission.
Stick to the.
All right, so on the first one, so the model that I believe is the best one is not to do November 7th and then December 5th, which would be 4 weeks out, which is an option if you like that one, and we will adjust. But that wouldn't be my suggestion.
And that's into the heart of Basel.
Right, that's what I mean. It's either, you know, right, you know, you've got Thanksgiving stuck into your election.
Yeah,
nobody's gonna vote.
Yeah.
Well,
And
that's my
by
question.
the
We'll be able to
way,
get to
that-
They won't be able to get to the polls, right? Yeah.
Right.
City Hall's shut down pretty much.
What is the
I mean, some
drop
people
off?
do that. So,
Right.
but and also like the elected officials / candidates also won't like that very much. That's my read from all the various conversations that I've had, because like I said, I think Ralph said,
Plus
we're asking everybody to do this, right? So I've asked a few people, right, you know, like, what do you think of this? And from the consultants candidate side, campaign side, they want 4 weeks too, because 2 weeks is really difficult from a candidate
See what they
perspective.
need to do, yeah.
They need, right, there's a lot that,
The-
so. I don't think that's the right way to go because of the holiday. So my pitch is actually to move the first election to October 3rd, or the second Tuesday in first Tuesday in October. With the runoff 4 weeks out, which is your current date, which is the November 7th. And so what that does is accomplishes all goals.
I like,
What about,
Let-
having-
Let's not jump to conclusions.
And so by the way, I mean, before, you like it so far. Just to add, that's the current Homestead model. So Homestead's the one city that, we call you guys the Big Four. That does October 3rd this year these are the dates for this year, it was October 3rd and November 7th. And then the other 3 cities were November 7th and then, beyond that. And so my goal here is to get everybody to consolidate onto that one same schedule. So that it gives everybody the 4 weeks. It gives us the time, we're done before the holidays and
How does I'm sorry, Sam, you're speaking the Homestead one.
yes.
Do you have data on turnout October and November? Does it drop off? Does it go up? That would be my biggest concern. If we did something in October that we then, people aren't just used to voting in October, so they may not show up the way they do in November. Because that would be-
but wouldn't you,
Or are they back in
but wouldn't
town?
you get more if you tied it to the national elections? The November, then you get your runoff people and you get more of a turnout there, so how do you?
That you're talking about then switching to an
Yeah.
even year.
That's, yeah,
That's
that's.
a
That's
different.
option
those are-
two.
That's the next
That's the
option,
next
oh,
Yeah.
okay, well,
I mean, I am happy to provide Homestead's data, but I already know, and I don't have it at my fingertips, but I will already tell you that your electorate comes out much heavier than Homestead. So I don't know, and it varies dramatically from city to city,
Mhm.
and you guys know, you have a very active.
'Cause that would be
Community,
the
right,
biggest
so,
concern from an October election. It's.
well, my concern with the October. Every few years, you're gonna have a conflict with the Jewish holidays.
Yeah.
And you may wind up disenfranchising folks because
Right.
they're gonna be in shul, in temple, in synagogue, wherever.
You're more into the peak of.
Though I like the idea and I think it's good, but that,
Is that in October?
Sometimes September,
Yeah.
sometimes October.
sometimes
depending on-
it comes early June.
It's one of the.
It could be early September, it could be early October, and it could be into the second week of October.
But remember,
Depending on the moon phase.
remember, we also have 14 days of early voting. Prior to. And we have vote by mail. I mean, there are other options besides voting on election. day.
I vote by mail, and I was telling Christine, I love it, it's the best. It's,
I think that
I
would be
mean, is
useful
the
to-
December 5th, is that what's giving you, if you, I mean, would 5 weeks out be?
I think the further you go
That's-
out, the less people
Okay.
are interested in it.
I agree.
think there are enough alternatives.
We hear the other option in its entirety.
So the commission requested that to consider having the elections even number of years. To follow I think it's August, November, correct?
August, November, even years, yeah.
Which is what the county does. So that,
I don't like August.
I don't like all this.
and.
Why?
And remember, if you're able
Because
to,
everybody's.
Yeah.
Yeah, but most people go away for that length of period of time, get their mail forwarded,
No,
don't they?
she's here in
so that's the
August.
county model that you requested. Additionally,
Not that day.
you are also competing for the attention of the voters
Voters,
with the presidential,
Right,
county mayor,
Get lost
county
in it.
commission. So again, I
it's
just
too
want,
much on one
I just
ballot
want you
and
to
nobody's
consider
here.
But you get
Okay.
great turnout. Yeah.
You do.
Yes, so there's a couple benefits. So interestingly, so I looked at Miami Beach's turnout, right? So Miami Beach's turnout in your general elections is about 20%, right? 20,
General, then it drops a little bit.
and then it drops into the
It's
teens.
like 13,000 and then 8,000.
What about presidential?
So interesting, so if you had switch to the August, November model, your electorate, interestingly, is also in the 20s for the primary. Even though the
Yeah.
primary election countywide might be a little bit higher or lower, it fluctuates. But for the last two, you hover around the same amount. Like in 2020 primary, it was 29%. In the 2022 primary, it was 22%. That makes sense because it's a presidential year versus a gubernatorial year, so that already, kind of changes things. But so you're not losing turnout, putting it into August of an even year, from what I see. Unless you want to also push back on the data, which is cool, we can do that, we'll debate it.
So
But where you pick up a lot is in the general, right? So you're going from your runoff being in the teens to 75 and 51%.
So what do you
But
want?
here's the danger in the even years is you start to creep into more partisanship. The more and more you have partisan elections, the more and more you're gonna have partisanship throughout, which by being an odd year, you don't really have that. It's starting to creep in, but it's not the same. It's a much more partisan election when you have a
But,
president
but
and a
I
governor
would-
out there.
I've observed that it's gotten more partisan. The elections here on the beach where the Democratic Party
Yeah.
promotes, the Republican Party promotes. I was just curious about the Jewish holidays this year, 2024, they're in
They're
October.
in October.
October 2nd, which
Like the whole month,
actually it
actually.
happens to be a Wednesday, but then the following one is October 11th, so it's,
And you
that.
got-
But that would
and
be the
this-
week after though.
No, I
Yeah,
understand
yeah.
that. I'm just suggesting in the future, there could be issues and we got a community of folks out there.
Yeah.
Who may be affected by that. And I just wanted part of the calculus in regard where we're trying to promote as much participation as possible. I don't want to eliminate folks who, I used to love going to the polls. I mean, walking in, I'm old enough to remember machines that you would pull the curtain on and do the little thing. But I love, I could sit in my house and, and participate in democracy and just mail it and you pay for the mail. It's the best.
Yeah.
I'm curious when we'll trust our computers enough where we'll be able to just go online and vote. I realize we're not there yet and, the space
Probably
aliens
anytime
will
soon.
do whatever they do to shift the numbers or whatever. But, I just think we need to be conscious of that.
Yeah.
And I just,
Yeah, well,
just again,
I guess, perhaps do we have goals that we want to accomplish? The better turnout, the better, right? I mean, I think that would be a good goal for us to try to accomplish. And secondly, I personally think that less partisanship would be better than more. These are supposed to be nonpartisan seats. They're not supposed to be Republican or Democratic and all of that. And so if we do something, I don't want to inadvertently push us down the road that we already seem to be down, or at least starting down. And so whatever solution we try to address, we should do it with the eye towards what do we want to accomplish. I get the logistical difficulty that exists. And so we want to address that too. And so we should try to get to some place where, we can kill all the birds with one stone and not just say, well, it's the holidays, it's all this stuff. Because I gotta believe that 2 weeks was decided years ago. It was a lot easier to process, of course. 3 weeks maybe makes it a little easier for you, but I don't know if it really helps.
well,
in the
I'm
grand
looking
scheme,
at
and then 4
my
weeks is-
calendar where this year the election was the 7th. If we pushed it back 5 weeks, which obviously would help you, it land on the 12th. Which is 2 weeks,
12th of December.
12th of December, which would be 2 weeks, probably before Christmas.
12th is after Basel.
It would be after Basel, and it would be before the winter break for kids when people will be going out of town. So,
The other thing, but you gotta look at that, the main election is the first Tuesday after the first Monday. So the latest,
Well,
in any given day.
Pardon?
First Tuesday.
Oh, it's not
It's
the
the
first
first-
Tuesday after the first one?
No,
Yeah,
it's the
well,
first Tuesday.
Just the first Tuesday? So the latest that could be is the eighth, right? Or the seventh,
For this year.
This year.
the latest,
Yeah,
so that would be
for
this.
last
Okay.
year.
And have, we're first, you haven't spoken to Miami or Hialeah on this?
Yes, it's all, everybody knows their ask and they're floating it and people. Generally, this is the first time I'm sitting down with you, I mean, I'm more developed with you guys, usually it's with the clerks and so on. But people seem to understand and are willing, so we'll see
This
what
year,
happens.
George, so you know, the election would be on the 5th. And 5 weeks later would be the 9th.
This is 2025,
For
2024.
so you, this
would
would
have
be odd years.
So we would
So
still
you're
be
on
on,
the-
I'm sorry, you're right,
Yeah.
so the fifth, it might be the fourth, you still, but that might put you into.
I'll check
possibly
2025. The first one would be on the 4th,
Fourth, and so.
and
5
then
weeks
the
later.
next one would be 1, 2, 3, 4, no, it would be the 9th,
Yeah, you're entirely possible.
so you would be, it would work.
So at the commission meeting, the commissioners expressed that they preferred ending the election earlier rather than extending it to December. We had the special election to fill the vacancy that went into December. And they were not happy, and they put it on the record, and you have the minutes from the commission meeting there.
Yeah.
That's why they even said August then. In other words, they wanted to end where it ends now. That's the latest they wanted to end, so.
Yeah, just a couple questions that, you know. I know we're focused on a specific proposal here, but just while we have you here. So is there one way to avoid runoffs is this sort of ranked choice voting, which I believe Florida does not permit?
Correct.
Is there any discussion among people about that happening? If so, then that would solve it.
I haven't had any cities ask me formally for that. You have certain activist groups from time to time that will say, hey, you know, we're following this in other states and it seems fantastic. Can we do it? And I think that buzz around the idea of it maybe happening is possibly why the law came into place to say that it's
Yeah.
not allowed. So unfortunately, that's not an option for you at this time unless there's a state law change on that. But there is a winner take all option for you. Right, like the
Yeah, it's
plurality,
a
and that's another,
Aventura-
yeah.
Aventura
Well,
has that.
the other, one of the things I've been toying with is the idea, and maybe this is a good time to ask Christina, is that plurality vote, block voting or block voting, where instead of groups like we have now, everybody runs together. And voters vote for 3 candidates, and the highest 3 vote getters are the elected winners. There's no runoff, it's voter, winner number 1, number 2, number 3, it's not group, so it's not head to head, it's less partisan. You don't need a runoff at that point, so you could conduct that election in November, as is the case now, and you know that night who the winner is, or soon after, once you do the recalls, or not the recalls.
Will other cities do that?
Some cities do,
Aventura.
some cities.
How do you
Yeah,
deal with
so
the mayor
there's-
race, though?
So the mayor's different, so that's a different thing, that maybe then you do have the runoff, either later than that November, if we can come up with an agreement, or in October, and then the runoff is held together with the commissioners at that point, and so you've called out the mayor's race sooner. What happens in Miami Beach historically is that you really have a contested mayor's race every 3 terms, every 6 years, because it's, typically the incumbent doesn't get real opposition or token opposition. Maybe by the time qualifying happens, you say, all right, if there's more than 3 candidates, then the election is set for October. If there's only 2 candidates at qualifying, the election is set in November. I don't know how that logistically would all play out, but
Don't want to have the voters not know when the election is.
no, I'm saying by qualifying.
Right, but in other words, voters expect to vote on a particular date. I think if you change it, 1 year is in October and another year is not.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, so in a year where there's a mayor's race, and there are only 2 candidates, then the race will take place in November together with the commission race. Standard November, first Tuesday of November. In a year where more than 2 candidates qualify to be mayor, you hold a primary in October and the runoff in November together with the commission as well.
I don't know about that.
That sounds complicated.
It sounds like nobody could figure it out.
Why would you not, well, there's another model very similar to that and which was. They only have runoffs if it's a tie, meaning for the mayor's race, so,
That would be plurality.
yeah, it is. And there's a couple of cities that do.
Yeah, I have some data here, whenever you guys are ready for that.
Sure.
So there are there are 8 cities that have the vote for 2 or more
Mhm.
option. Not familiar with any that have it for some races and not others. It's either that's how they do it or that's not. how they do it.
That's what I'm suggesting for commission. Separate the mayor from the commission. You can't vote for
Well,
two
do they
mayors.
separate the mayor from commission in those cities, or is the highest vote given to the mayor?
I think it's the latter. The ones that I'm thinking of, like Miami Shores,
Yeah, Bay Harbor does it, but
Bay
they pick the
Harbor.
mayor themselves. So in an instant like ours, where we would have,
So then
those
it's
are
not,
two different
then
races.
you're saying that it's not the highest vote getter is the mayor, you're saying the commission selects the
In
mayor.
Bay Harbor, it's the
Okay.
commission, when they first
Oh,
meet,
you
they
have,
pick the
you
mayor.
have that there?
But you could say there's 2 races. There's the commission race. And the mayor's race. And the commission race is plurality block voting, and the mayor's race is. Highest vote getter, unless there's a runoff. If it's a tie.
I mean, listen, from the elections department perspective, I don't see an issue with that, I don't see an issue with that, I mean, we have, I was gonna say 8 cities that have. Vote for 2 or more, they're Bay Harbor, Biscayne Park, Golden Beach, Key Biscayne, Medley, Opelika, Miami Shores, and Virginia Gardens.
All smaller cities.
Right, I was just thinking that.
Hialeah used to do it, like about 20 years ago. I think that was the largest city that used to do it. In local here, I mean.
Yeah,
there's other
I
places.
kind of like, I mean, what I like about that is then you don't have the situation where where you have runoffs. You know, this time we were kind of lucky, we only had the mayor in the runoff. But where you have,
Oftentimes it's
you have commissioners now doing runoffs, and that's all that extra
more money
noise and mail.
in the elections, because that's one less
Yeah,
race
so-
that you have
so
to go fundraise
So
for.
you basically eliminate that possibility.
Probably less negative. but-
It's not less money, or do you mean for us,
No,
cost
no, no,
wise
no,
for the
for
election?
For no campaign contributions.
Gotcha,
something like
okay.
that.
Yeah, because they're
You're not racing to go in the runoff, you're going to go fundraise again. Once
Yeah.
you've made it, you've made it. It could be less negative, because, I mean, you can't go shoot at everybody. You only
Let me
maybe-
throw something into this mix, though. There's another thing to talk about here. Rejiggering the entire apparatus
Yeah,
where
districts.
instead of the commission candidates running at large, 3 of them are assigned to districts, then 3 run at large.
Mhm.
So that wouldn't necessarily work.
No, it's one or the other, you
So-
know.
So I have something to say on that. I talked to several commissioners about it. And here's what happens when you've only got 3 that you can speak to. You can't talk to the rest. So the 3 that I spoke to said they would rather you be able to speak to everybody rather than just your district. You're cut off from it.
Except that I want somebody accountable. If I live in, let's say, South Beach,
Right.
I'd like to have my own guy to be accountable rather than somebody living up in North Beach, doesn't really know my individual issues. And, you know,
Yeah, but they're only one vote. I kind
That's-
of lean the other way, because I like the fact that
Everyone
the
else is scared
commissioners
about it.
have to balance the whole city when they
Right.
vote. And we're gonna end up with people in silos like
Yeah,
this.
perfect.
North Beach is gonna be one way and South
well,
Beach is gonna
but
be.
why
this way.
not? I don't think that's bad.
No, but.
Yeah, because my
But
issues
how do you get
on
to
South
compromise?
Beach, well, because my issues on South Beach may be in conflict with the issues in Mid Beach or North Beach. And you don't, if somebody's in North Beach, you don't particularly care what's happening down here
I do.
necessarily.
I do. I live in North
Maybe
Beach.
you do, but a lot of people don't.
I look at it as
And
one city.
I like the idea of having my guy, a local guy, who is,
But
you
Mike,
know,
that's assuming, and I'm not, that was.
I mean, I'm throwing this out here.
That's assuming north, middle and south. What if it's coastal, Central,
whatever-
Island.
no, no,
Those are
you're right.
different ways to
You're
carve it
right.
up.
And then you
I
got.
mean, you can carve it up to
High
5.
rises, yeah, exactly, and so it,
Yeah.
and then you've got, don't you have, voter rights issues where, you know, that districts have to meet certain.
Yes, so if that's the route you go, it's gonna be very important, this should probably be in the charter. It's of when it happens, when redistricting happens, because yes, after every census. When the data comes out, you have to then look at your districts and redistrict depending upon where the movement is, right? So there, right now, the cities that have districts are Miami Gardens, North Miami, and City of Miami are the 3.
And they fight about it all the time.
Yeah, I don't see those as
Yeah.
good models.
Models.
The issue, Michael, is if somebody, just because somebody is representing South Beach, it doesn't mean that they're that they're more likely to, that it's more likely that the interests of South Beach will be heard or met. In fact, I think it's less likely. I think a North Beach person is gonna hesitate to vote for something for South Beach. A South Beach person is gonna hesitate to vote because he's gonna see, how are my voters gonna feel about that? Versus now, you know, there's a process where you talk to all of the commissioners and you can get, you know,
And
you
maybe
can pull
limited,
together the
Yes.
vote.
that's when you only get one, because.
Yeah.
You know, you're guaranteeing it's only one from South Beach, one from Mid Beach, one from North
Yeah.
Beach. Right now, you can have 6 from South Beach. if
Exactly.
The math works out and the voters will.
Yeah.
Decide accordingly.
And you can talk to
And
them.
and I
you
know
have
that
access
that's
to
kind of why you're here, so, you know,
We're
well,
preaching out loud,
yeah,
so-
you know, why don't we, at least as it relates to the district stuff, you wanna come on in and kind of speak to what the budget advisory committee was,
Yeah, so we were
Everything.
gonna recommend what you said, which was 1 from each north, south and mid beach and then 3 at large. I have also talked to some commissioners and I understand there are issues with that. But I think the
They have
overall.
parochial concerns.
Well, I think that the overall, when we talked about it in our committee and just, I'm representing the committee, not my own interests, but when we talked about it in the committee, it was more from the perspective that, I think there's a feeling that more of the emphasis and more of the budget and more of everything goes to South Beach. Because it's the most touristy area, it's the most visible area, other parts of the city get neglected. And so that was the perspective where we said, okay, well, maybe if we had a representative from North Beach and a representative from Mid Beach and one from South Beach, and I don't think anybody, when we had that discussion, even thought about the whole districting process and how you carve up
Yeah, it's-
people by population, because that, I understand that has to be
Race
fairly
and
by
nationality.
population.
Right, you
and
have to
high
hire
risk versus
versus
middle.
middle, they
Well,
have
I
to
mean,
hire
it's
versus
just,
people.
you have to take population into account, so where you would draw the lines, because I'm just making up numbers, if there's 90,000 people, then it would have to be 30 in each district, right?
Yes,
And so.
with a small variance you're
Right.
allowed, but yes, it has to
So,
be equal in
Right,
numbers.
so it would be quite challenging, I would imagine, so, and we never got to that level of detail, obviously, we didn't have you there to talk to us about it, so.
I would comment to, you know, to the group, because there have been times where you've had 2 and even 3 members of the commission from North Beach.
And the only one I ever knew was Mickey Steinberg, and now there's Tanya Mott.
You had, before that, you had Jared Liven, you had, we'll say Smith,
Alamon.
you had Richard Steinberg, you.
Sort
You've had more than one from North Beach, and this notion of that, the North Beach is forgotten and the South Beach gets all the money is been around forever, and I don't know how you disprove it, a lot has been spent. in Northern- I do, I get it, but it's easy to say, harder to prove, and I don't know that it's enough to say, therefore we should change
I understand,
Our
and again.
form of government in that regard.
Yes, and this is, it's open for a lot of discussion and there's complications with it and there's a lot of other things, but again. So our committee wanted to recommend 2 things. One is not legal because we did
Yeah,
long
right,
right term
right.
voting.
I want that, that's my
And,
preference.
and then the other was somehow to, well, we had it in the way that you described, but. The spirit behind it is to try to have representation that seems
Well,
more,
85%.
I don't know if fair is the right word, but representative. I
You're
guess
trying,
is the right
you're
word.
trying to create some equity. If 5 commissioners live in North Beach. Let's say even 6 commissioners and the mayor all live in North Beach.
Today that can happen.
You know, they get to, you know what, we wanna do this, that, and the other. Mid Beach, it interfere, we'll throw them a little bit, South Beach, they don't care about. I mean, I'm not suggesting that would happen, but it
South
could
Beach
happen.
But I'm telling you, that in my years, I was here 12 years, you know, there were times where you had Dee Dee and Jose and, you know, there was 2, maybe 3 out of the 6 that were out there. And they did what they were supposed to do, which is deal with the city as a whole.
That's what I've
Not
always.
My prerogative, now, yeah, they dealt with the issues that were constituent issues at the local level, like everything else, and, you know, the city has invested a lot of money up there, not enough, apparently. But it's
Yes.
not at, you know, I wouldn't say that it's, you know, that idea that there was the fair-haired stepchild that is rhetorical and has been forever since I've been here. When I first got here, that was the first thing I heard, oh, North Beach is always forgotten.
Well,
You know,
aren't there, I mean, if you look at where the voters are, aren't there, you know, doesn't North and Mid Beach as a total add up to more voters?
Yes.
So, I mean, if these decisions are being made for allocation, it isn't for lack of recognition, or, you know, because people are the commissioners will try to serve their voter base. And so, if they, despite the fact that there were more voters in that area, they made a decision to go to spend some money somewhere else, it was probably because it made sense. So,
I mean, just the argument about, you know, then nobody from North Beach would wanna vote for something from South Beach, I think is not necessarily a good argument, I'm just.
So I'm not making
comment
that
on it,
argument.
Because, I mean, we have a Congress that, you know, manages, well, sometimes, they used to, anyway, manages to, you know, get dollars, you know, to the military, even though not everybody in Congress has a military base in their district, and, you know, so, like, and because it takes 4 of 7 votes to get anything done, if you're only ever protecting your own interest, then no one's ever gonna vote for what you want because you've never been chipped in to help them in what they wanted, right? So you have to build consensus no matter what you do. And so I don't necessarily think the argument that, well, I'll only vote if I'm the representative from North Beach, I'll only vote for North Beach projects because I would never ever get a North Beach project done because I need 3 of the 6 other people to vote for it with me, and if I never lend them my vote, they're never gonna lend me their vote. So I think you have to build consensus in any event. So I'm not really sure that that's an argument against it in my view. I understand your argument or your point is very well taken. Again, it's not for me to decide, it was just for me to present, so I've done that.
Done well.
I wanna make sure that I'm being articulate though, because I don't want you to leave here thinking that it's problematic on our part. It's just everything is a matter of timing with us, right? So when the census happens, it takes a while for the data to be released, right? And then all the jurisdictions they're supposed to start with redistricting. And so you have to like almost immediately get a consultant on board, start doing all that research, tell us where, you know, and then ultimately your commission has to approve your redistricting lines, build in timelines for potential lawsuits, because after that comes us behind it doing what's called re-precincting, which we recently just did. I know I can get into that if you guys want. We redrew precinct lines. We have to, it's a phase of redistricting. And all of that has to be done well in advance of elections being held because we have to notify voters of where their new locations are. So it's a matter of timing. Like, can we do it? Sure, we do it for other cities. It's not a problem. This is a big policy decision for you guys to make. But there are a lot of factors that we need to make sure that we take into consideration if we're gonna go with my department, if we're gonna go that
And
route.
lawsuits are prevalent in that type of situation,
Yeah.
of course.
yeah, I think it adds a lot of complexity.
I do too.
I mean, our goals actually should be to try to
I
simplify
agree.
the election process, like your suggestion and and, you know.
I think we're too, in my opinion, too small to be districted that way.
Yeah.
I mean, the county went to districting and it led to a whole different form of government, but it was for many years not even districted that way. You've got the empires of those districts that what you call it, that don't have any cities in them or few cities, and so the district commissioner becomes like pretty powerful person. That I'm not a fan of districting. I think it creates silos
So
where we shouldn't have.
I-
But a question for Christina though is, or maybe it's for Jeannie and company over here, is it, whatever we do, particularly as it relates to the date. Can it be done? I hate to be the first, if Hialeah and Miami are not gonna. We come up with an idea, we say 5 weeks works for us. And if they don't do it, I don't think you are gonna want.
Well,
Different
why-
kind of runoff system for Hialeah than from Miami than from Miami Beach. I think you're gonna. want
yeah,
all three.
ideally,
Why would that be a problem, Christina? Because one, you know, it gives you more time to focus on one group and
Yeah.
then you take up the other group.
not a problem. I'll take as much time as I can get. Not ideal, right? Because then, I mean, we have that now and we're trying to correct a lot of this where. Yes, we have an election and then one city has it 2 weeks and then 3 weeks and then 4 weeks. And you know, it's a lot of
Are
overlapping
they in
elections.
Miami 2 weeks or?
Not, yeah, not in your cluster, but just in.
Oh, another.
Other, yeah, like after, like, for instance, I'll give you a great example. After the November general election,
Right,
okay? We have cities that have runoffs right now, 2 weeks later.
2 weeks later. You don't
3
like that
weeks
either?
later, 4 weeks later, 5 weeks later.
Or-
Those days are definitely coming to an end.
Yeah.
That's it, that is ridiculous.
It was,
I mean, we had 3 statewide recounts in 2018. We barely could get to the planning of those elections. So those cities. I'm just speaking candidly here, are either gonna have to work collaboratively with us, or we're going to have to force them to move out, and so, we do it. It's not great, the ideal is to have everybody be on the same schedule. But you know, maybe now is a good
Why
time.
is that, Christina? I mean, we're not asking for less time. We're saying we have maybe a week more than a couple of other cities. Why, I guess I understand, because it's not a question of confusing voters because they don't vote into the other elections.
Yeah.
What would be the reason that it's more difficult for you if you have 2 cities at 4 weeks and 1 city at 5?
Yeah, oh no, I'm saying it's not. No, it's not. Yeah, it's my recommendation, my goal is to move everybody to the same date. But if we don't, if it doesn't end up that way, then we'll take the time that we can.
As long
get
as you
out
have
of it,
time.
As long as we have more time, right?
Yeah.
But you know, now might be a good time for me to also mention this, and you will always, Ralph knows this, always get openness and honesty out of me. Maybe sometimes a little too much, but I think that's a good thing. And see is what you get. So you guys may or may not know that our office is becoming a constitutional office as of January 7, 2025. At that point, when we break away from the county, there is going to be additional power that is given to this constitutional officer. And so I'm not so sure that these special election requests are going to be, there's
Yeah,
gonna, in the same way. And there are multiple statutes, and Jean can tell you, that we can tap into as a department to actually say no to election dates and actually tell you, listen, 3 weeks doesn't work for us. We need 4 weeks, we need 5 weeks. But if you want to run the election yourself because you're so set on 3 weeks, here's the equipment. And here's the voter rolls. I mean, literally, like it, you know, when you add them all up, that's essentially what it
Which
says.
has never happened
Yeah.
in Miami.
Which is
We
never
are-
Well, no, we
Right.
used to run elections here years and years ago. Before my time, I think,
I don't-
but rough,
So the goal is, just to finish the thought, so the goal is to work collaboratively with the cities to all sort of do the same thing together.
we appreciate
But
it.
I think ultimately it'll end up where everybody's all on the same page.
So have you gotten any feedback from Hialeah or Miami?
I mean, I work, like I said, this is the most evolved conversation I've had, but nobody's giving us pushback right now. People collectively are saying, for the sake of the voters, I don't think too many people care about my burden.
No.
But usually, like, for the voters and for the candidates who are finding it
Yeah,
difficult,
it's
and
stressful.
if you talk to the elected officials, you'll hear, it's hard, so.
I'm trying to get a sense
No
of where
pushback
do you
yet.
think they might land?
They will be landing in the homestead model. That's my prediction. That's what we all spoke about last November. And that's.
And the homestead model is October and November.
October,
I've
November.
heard the
The
same.
first Tuesday in October and the first Tuesday in
Not
November.
heard, but
Yeah.
it was told.
Yeah,
So-
Yeah.
so
In odd
if-
number
yeah.
of years.
If that,
It makes
in
sense.
odd number,
It
I
makes sense to
think we
everybody
should
with
keep it
the-
in odd number here. But if we did that, and if we layered on top of that. The block voting, we could still have a primary in October just for mayors. And a runoff in November, like we normally have. For the runoff of the mayor seat and a block commission race.
So every other election, you would only have the one election,
No. We still have,
but when you don't have the mayor.
We always.
no, we always have the mayor.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
always
you
have the mayor every 2
Every
years.
2 years.
Every 2
Oh.
years.
Okay, scratch that.
So,
Okay.
so you qualify, you have 2 candidates for mayor. You'll know who your mayor is in October. I would prefer to say defer that race until November in that instance, but fine, we'll know who the mayor is in October. And in November, you'll have 3, 4, 5, however many candidates are running for commission. 1 race. Highest vote getter gets in, the second highest vote getter gets in, and the third highest vote getter gets in.
Well, you
And
say you
there's
know
no
who your
runoff.
mayor is, you know, it could be a runoff.
Right, that's what I'm saying, if there's
Yeah,
more than
you
2
know it'll be
members,
2, and then so that runoff takes place at the same time as the
that's the
commission
commission
race,
seat.
and the commission doesn't have a runoff.
Correct, because you're just voting 3 candidates and the top 3 get it. And I like the idea that it's nonpartisan, it's less money in politics. And hopefully it'll be less negative because it's, you know, it's easy to send negative ads
Negative
to that
stuff's
one
gotta
person that's
stop.
running against you.
The negative
But if
stuff's
you're
gotta
running
stop.
against 5 or 6 other people, you know, you're gonna send negative ads against
Yeah.
everybody? Or you just say, I'm gonna, you know, tout myself and I just be one of 3.
So under that scenario, would we have one qualifying period?
Yeah.
Because because candidates want to know
Yeah, you do it.
who's running for mayor, who's running for commission.
It also
So in
this idea of
theory, it-
switching seats around.
Yeah,
and
there
all that
isn't
stuff.
that, yeah, that's the other good thing, yeah, oh, that's a bunch, that creates massive confusion.
Yeah.
People, you know, in our races, somebody's running for seat 1 and then
So
somebody
last
else
minute they
comes
switch
in
to seat 2
and
or. you-
to run against them, and then, so then they jump over to seat 2 and there's this
Because you're
musical chairs
picking
that
those
comes up.
head.
But that's why we would need one qualifying period.
Yeah.
So if the qualifying period now is September for the November election.
Yeah.
Then
It might
in
need to be
concept,
August.
it would be August.
It might need to be August for both, and so it's a longer period for commission. For mayor, you still have the, what is it, 90 days or whatever it ends up being. But everybody qualifies at the same time and and it's done. And if you, right away, if there's more than 3 candidates for mayor. Then it is likely that you might have a runoff. Not guaranteed, because, one person can get 50% anyway, but it is likely you'll have
It's
a
gonna
runoff.
drastically reduce the number of runoff races over time.
It'll be 1 at most.
Right.
I mean, the other option, and I think Ralph might have mentioned it, is going to you have a runoff only if it's a tie.
Yeah, but I don't
If
like the
that-
idea of.
you don't like that one?
authority to
Okay.
Somebody,
That's like how the president is.
yeah,
Yeah, there's
particularly if you
14
have
cities that
like
do that.
4
He
people
gets
in the
spoilers
race,
and all that.
because that could happen, and then somebody got, 4 people and they only got 24%, and somebody got 27%.
Look at,
They got it.
Yeah,
No, that-
look at our example of just this most recent election. You had
Yes.
4 candidates for mayor.
Right.
Steve Minor was ahead with 32% or something like that. It didn't change the outcome in the runoff,
Yeah.
but he would have gone in with 32%, which,
Yeah,
it's not a
yeah.
mandate.
Yes, it would make it difficult to govern.
It's not a mandate.
It would.
But I would like that, because at least you have that runoff, but it's only 1 runoff.
Yeah.
And it's only a runoff during the rest of the election.
I have a question about that, and I'm now in front of the public, and maybe I'm not. The only question I have is that, so let's say all the commission seats run together, as we're requesting, right? I'm just trying to think of. Do the best funded candidates then just automatically win? And so do you just basically, you're buying commission seats, right? Because when, you think about, and I don't wanna name names but you think about the race as it was this year, right? So people had, and I know Bill Rhodey, who spends a lot of his own money, did not win, so that's one thing to say against that one, against the argument I'm going to make, but. Like David Suarez, people were afraid to run against him because he had so much of his own money in the race, right? And somebody did eventually run against him and gave him actually a little bit of a run for his money, even though he got in so late, so, but do you wind up only having the people who have the
Well, it
resources?
still
I think-
happens, because if nobody runs against the guy, then he gets in.
No,
then-
but here's the thing, so in what you're saying is, in fact. it avoids the exact behavior you were describing.
Because I think the three most best known by virtue of money, because there's no debate amongst them.
But you've got to look at it historically and not just this most recent election. Historically, what I have seen is when there's always been 3 commission races at any time, right? And so usually what you found is that there was 2 incumbents and a vacancy. And what would happen is the incumbents would either get a token or no opposition. And then the vacancy would have 6 people running against them, because who wants to run against an incumbent?
But aren't they
If-
usually well funded?
That's actually a very good.
If you're in this group, the incumbent has to
be in the
run.
group too.
And they have to run as well. They don't get a pass,
Yeah.
which has happened on many, many occasions where people just, I don't want to, they're a great commissioner. I don't want to take them
Yeah,
on.
yeah, I think that what happens with our current system is somebody could, they start raising money. And they choose to see whatever it is, and somebody says, oh, this guy's got a lot of money, I don't wanna run against him, I'm gonna go jump over to this other one, so the person with the most money, they did buy this.
And almost by de facto, yeah,
Yeah,
And
in a reverse way.
yeah,
But the candidates, the good thing about races where you're running against someone, you get to clarify the issues. You get to articulate issues. If I'm running against everybody,
Well, you just have a debate
But
with
do you-
everybody that's running. I mean.
But
you
do
can have a debate, you can have a debate with some people.
I'm not sure.
You've been to our
the
debates?
issues- The issues are fleshed out as well. If you got this mass of people, I mean, I haven't made up my mind
Yeah.
about it, I'm just thinking.
I think actually, Michael, when you're doing head to head, what you're doing, which is look at the mail you got.
Yeah.
This person had tickets, this person had DUIs, this person had this, that, and the other. And they don't really talk about this person
right,
is
they're not gonna,
an issue based.
they're gonna have their campaign funds, and they're not gonna wanna spend it on, because they know it's a waste of time, than knocking down 5 other candidates.
Which
they're gonna-
which horse do you go knock out?
Instead, they'll spend it on, here's why I'm the best
Here's my issue.
choice. So that could be good.
Actually, I personally like that idea, just because like I think if you have a debate, you're gonna have 6 people on the debate stage and they're all gonna talk about what their.
Their issue is not
Right.
so-and-so
They-
had a negative of some sort. I think it
I
affects
think
the
it's
negative.
awfully bland
We
if you
are,
have 6 people. No, because nobody has a desire to sharpen their view. Because you don't want to alienate people, you're just trying to squeeze your way into
But that's
the
how it is
top
now.
3.
Well, but
That's how
no,
they
people
do
are
it
gonna make an effort to stand out as well, so.
That's what they
You're
do
gonna get
now.
those people as well, and that nobody's just gonna wanna be mixed in with the group because they wanna stand out, so. That's the other side of the
I mean, the
argument.
groups don't really represent it. If you think
They're
about it,
just
right, they're just
groups.
random numbers.
Exactly.
Right,
They're
like
not
they
even
represent
geographical.
nothing, they're not districts, they're not anything, they're just random numbers, right? So I mean, it's quite arbitrary that way, I just.
There's another version, I'm not advocating for it, but in Val Harbor, for example, which is way too small, but there's a reason for why it is the way it is. There are districts, but you still vote at large. And so you must live in the district, but you are voted for by the entire city.
That's a good idea.
Well, that's a good idea, but that's gonna really reduce your number of candidates potentially.
For Miami Beach, I don't think, there's a reason over there, because there's a clear divide. But
Sounds like we're aged.
It's gonna be poor and the super rich.
it's the haves and the have-mores. You know.
I think that reduces potential talent pool, it does.
My preference is the group, the, what do we call it, the block voting or the multi-plurality block voting, because there's a lot of positives for what I would try to do, which is, avoid the negativity, get the money out, and less partisan. Those are the things that
And
I,
avoid the runoffs, at least the number of races, you'll have potentially 1 runoff.
but the runoff will take place
Same day as.
the same day as the commission,
And
is. That's your main rate.
Right.
Which by the way, honestly, I mean, I hadn't thought of this, but you're likely gonna have more turnout that November than October. Right? Right now, we pick our mayor when it's a runoff, we pick our mayor with the
The
turnout
lower
even
turnout.
lower.
Yeah.
Than the 20%.
How would you have an instant runoff if you've got people voting by mail? I mean, if you've got people like, I go to the polls, so I don't really. The vote by mail thing is just, I've never done that, and it's kind of just strange,
But there-
but how do you, I send them, and I'm just, and how does that work?
No,
It's not
we
saying
have an
it's a
election.
runoff, he's saying a primary and a general.
It's primary.
I thought you were saying that you would have the runoff that day.
Yeah, so you would have, so.
Same day as the
so-
commission race.
So the
Okay.
mayor's race, there's
Okay.
one
Yeah.
race
Yeah.
only in October.
Right.
That's the mayor's race.
Okay,
If there's not a clear winner.
So if there's two candidates, the winner
the
wins
winner
outright
is
in
the mayor.
October.
Exactly.
okay.
If there's three, the top two vote
I was
getters
giving them
go
a
into
confusing
November.
Right.
with one-
Assuming the top didn't get 50%. Right.
Right, but, you know, the way it works right now in the city is that if there is a general election and there is a need for a runoff in any of the races that are up in the general, then all of the incumbents hold over
That's right.
until the results from the runoff. So under the scenario that George is speaking of, if the election for the mayor was in October, assuming that there was no need for a runoff for the mayor's seat, that individual who won the mayor's seat in October would not be installed until the
after.
final election results from the runoff in November when the commissioners were
That's
elected.
fine. That's, in this
I
instance
mean, that
here.
follows the statewide model,
That's okay.
right? Like even if
Right.
you win unopposed or elected in October, you're not in,
Office
yeah,
At the same time.
after November, yeah.
And so that person will know they're their mayor and they will have to wait until the results of everything else.
And I would guess that, what we would need to do just mechanically, right now, I was explaining to Christina, in the city code, we have a provision that where there is the general election and there's a need for a runoff. The intervening city commission meetings, the city commission is limited to emergency matters where there is a runoff. So if we had that scenario that we're speaking of now, if there was, and so the mayor, whether the mayor is elected or not at the general, there would be an election in November for the city commission seat. So during that intervening period of time, then the city commission, I would think, have to consider tweaking that issue about.
You can do
emergency
that.
matters.
You can tweak it, or all you're talking about is the October meeting.
Well, it's still a 4-week or in some years, 5-week period.
Yeah, but I mean, those are
Right, but they-
logistics, I think.
That's
can be
right, they could
resolved.
keep it as emergency actions.
Yeah, one other thing that's on here, maybe we should touch on it. And knock it down if you don't agree, which is this August idea. The thing I don't like about the August is that you know, normally we go through our budget process and have those critical budget meetings in September. So you're electing people in August, maybe they're getting, I guess they'll be seated after, they have to be
But
seated.
it's still, you're talking August and November, right? August primary, November election.
August, November, odd year is the
Yeah.
third
Oh, it's
option.
only
So it's-
primary.
Yeah, so it's still, now you're giving August, September,
But
October,
August is the
November.
main election then unless there's a runoff. In most cases,
Yeah.
there's, you know, so what
I'm
I'm saying
not
is,
in
yeah,
August.
yeah. I'm
There's
not
a lot
Wait,
saying
are you,
August
is this the
true.
August, November in a general election year,
No.
or is this the odd year, August?
Odd year. I think we knocked down we don't wanna be in
Yeah,
a.
that, I forgot somebody's.
Okay,
proposing.
but yeah, option 3 is in an odd year, which, I mean, that's good if I'm reading the room right and you're not interested in that, because that's really not an option for us.
Okay, well, then
Yeah.
let's take it
Because
off.
it's when the county has their election. if I
Well,
understand.
that's an even.
No, it's, with so many cities having so many elections, it is almost impossible for us to have any kind of quiet downtime. And so we have very deliberately carved out June through basically October of an odd year, because Virginia Gardens, which is like, I think, one precinct and only has an election seldomly, is when we do all of our preventative maintenance on our equipment and upgrades on all of our technology.
So you don't like it
So
either.
And
And then the
so that's not.
campaigning
not-
process would be in June and July when there's nobody here.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, I think voters would not like this.
No, not an August thing. I don't think that.
that's a big block for your candidates too. I think as this idea goes up the chain, it might not,
Was it some, was it?
It might
was
die,
it
because
Gelder
I've
who was
heard that
suggesting it? Who suggested
So-
it's a
that?
long
So
campaign.
yeah, October.
Anything else from the budget advisory?
I just, the one thing I just wanna know, I mean, I get, you like odd years because, it's not less partisan.
It's less
I
partisan.
mean, the
you
only
have
thing
more-
is if you had even years, the turnout would, the people who elected those people for office would be a much greater portion of the electorate, which
That's-
could
I
be
like
an
that.
interesting.
Yeah, that's, there,
Thing.
there,
It's just-
there's a positive there. I'm not gonna
just-
deny
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I mean, I I'm
At the
kind of
expense-
a little on the fence, but the other thing is that by having it in an odd year. Voters are not having to listen to 20,
Correct.
you know, because they've got to elect a
Voter
lot of
fatigue.
people. So how much bandwidth does any one voter have to hear from candidates and make decisions? In an odd year, they're not getting a lot of other stuff going on.
I mean, I guess there's more knocking on the door, more mail, more whatever during.
It may be more
Regular
expensive,
time.
it may be more
It could
expensive.
be more
just to
expensive,
run.
yeah.
No, not for you.
Oh, okay.
Not for you, but for the candidate.
Sorry, I think about taxpayers, I don't think about campaigns.
For the
Yeah.
candidate, it may be a more expensive race, because they gotta spend more money to get their voice
To
through.
get heard.
You know, whether it's more ads, more TV, obviously it won't be a TV at that point, they're competing with, national elections and stuff, but. I think,
It's interesting, it's just a question of, it's trade-off, right? Would you rather have more turnout, which you're definitely gonna get in the even years, right? Or more,
but you might have this information, I don't know if you have, not at your fingertips, but. There's a drop off, there's a point in which people came to run for president and for senator and Congress and judges, and there's a drop off, and at some point you've got the undercounts. Is there a way to assess, cities that have their election in November of even years, together with all these other races? Is there a statistical drop off that says, yeah, there's a point in which people are saying, I'm not voting anymore?
I mean, I hear that, I don't know how theoretical that is, I did bring this, I don't have that data at my fingertips. so
But
you're
you
correct.
know, it's not
But I know-
necessarily. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I know that, we're gonna be way down the ballot, right? So I actually brought some samples for you, because it's really not that bad, thought it'd be interesting. So in August, typically it's a one-page ballot. So there's not a lot of questions, so
Yeah, the president's not there.
this is a city race right here. So you will always be on the front side of page one of an August ballot, okay? And then here's a November ballot, which actually you guys were on. I guess this is a special Miami Beach Group 1 Commissioner, special election, yeah. So this is where it landed in the November election. And this was in November 2022. I have copies if anybody's interested in this. So it's not like, you're on the back of page 4, it's races commonly, unless it's a ridiculously long ballot, which is not the case ever, you will be on page 1. Questions are another story. You had a lot of questions. You had 8 questions. So you went to but you do this anyway.
In the county.
You do this whether you have your election, our election, you put questions all the time.
County, is there a drop off or is a significant increase between turnout in August versus November?
Yes.
Which one's higher, November?
By far.
And so you
It's like
could have,
30%, let's say, in a primary and in the 70s for, in a gubernatorial, it's in the 50s. In a presidential, it's in the 70s.
so you could have races already settled. Commissioner races, if they were head to head, for example, settled in August. When this idea that, well, the national election will have a lot of people come out and so you have high turnover, but those races may not.
no, you said you were only gonna have the mayor in August and then the commissioners were all gonna be in November.
I know what I'm saying about in the even years. And I'm not saying August, I'm suggesting October.
Yeah, well, here's the other
Yeah,
disadvantage.
that's what I'm saying.
I think you could make the case, easily that there are more Miami Beach voters participating in those even years. But do they know what they're voting for? I mean, because they have to decide among, they've been focused on the president's race and all the other things that are there. So will they be well enough informed about the commission races to make a
Or do
good,
they vote party line?
well, if you had party line.
No, but I'm saying,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what will happen is you'll get,
Yeah,
the
yeah. So
Republican
the
Party, the
advantage
Democratic
to
Party will
be
send out, these are our
off there
candidates.
Is that there are no other candidates running, and so that it just focuses on those commission races, so even if fewer people turn out, at least they are more likely to be informed.
I don't know that's necessarily true.
I'm with
I
Sam.
mean, listen, my feeling is,
Sam up there.
my feeling is that when it comes to elections, we should be looking to maximize the number of voters. I mean, that's just, democracy in action, if you will, as opposed to try and peel off the time that it would get more informed voters or less partisanship. I mean, that gets into breakouts that we really have no control over, no statistical analysis of, and really don't even know if we're right or wrong. So I think really, when it comes to an election, our primary goal should be to maximize the number of voters. That's my view.
Which means no August election.
Which means even.
Right, yeah.
Even
No
your,
August.
even your election.
August and November.
That's my
Just
view.
what I
my view.
suggested.
Well, no, we can still do it October, November and even year, or would that not be an option?
In an even year.
Maybe an odd year, even year.
Are you
No,
even? Yeah.
You're saying, if, so I agree with you. And even years are gonna have more turnout than odd years,
Right.
but we say, but we don't like August. Could we do October and November?
Unfortunately, no. Because, I mean, I'm doing early voting at 33 early voting sites, serving 500,000 voters for a presidential election in October. So all the equipment, all the poll workers, all
Yeah.
vote by mail, and then you'd have like 2 different vote by mail ballots out there.
Yeah, we're county voters too, so we would have to be voting in August for something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
Yeah, because I think we're comparing apples and oranges then, because we were saying that there's higher turnout in November in even years. But if you're now saying that it's really gonna be in August, is August in an even year better?
Better than November in
October,
an odd.
November?
That's
an
like
odd
what
year?
six-
And I think we all agree
It's only
August is not great at all, because August is when a lot of people are away.
Yeah.
So August is problematic, I think.
yeah, that's
So
why,
that-
that's
And
why
odd, you know,
October,
like your
November,
August-
in
August-
odd years might be. the
Even
way.
are odd. People generally go away in the summertime.
Here.
They're with school's out and the kids go away, they go away with their kids, they go on vacation, they have their houses, they go to whatever it is.
Families are going back because school starts, but
Yes.
most of our
Yeah.
population is.
Seasonal though, right?
Yeah, like I said at the beginning, I'll just repeat if this is helpful. Your voters turn out at about the same rate in August of an even year as your general election.
That's
So
the
that's
point.
kind of a wash. The runoff portion of it is where currently it drops down into the teens.
Right.
And where in November of an even year, it goes to,
Right,
I think I said
so-
50, what did I
Yeah,
say?
it goes way up.
So it goes- so it
Yeah,
goes to- so my
Yeah, but
argument
under
would
this
be,
scenario,
let's-
the runoff would be the time that we now the general.
right, that's what I'm saying, it's the
Yeah,
runoff for
it's-
commission will be November, which is our highest historicals. And the mayor's primary will be October, which is new, we have no data on that. But in
Right.
an odd year. And their runoff, if there's a runoff, will happen in November, which is our historical high.
So it's about even is what you say, so I think that's what argues for the simpler.
Right.
Exactly.
And also, I think more voters would be happy. I don't think people will want to be, listening to campaign stuff, doing campaign stuff in July and all, in July.
Okay, guys, we've spent a lot of time here, anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your
See
attention.
you tomorrow.
Christine, anything else from you?
No, but I am at your service. I mean, this is a big decision for everybody, I understand, so whatever additional data, or if you want me to come back.
Well,
Tell me,
I think we have a,
Can you tell me what your ideal is? I just so I am
I
clear.
would like that
What's
as
your
well.
perfect idea?
I
For
am,
us.
I'm personally, from the department's perspective, neutral on whether you do stay in an odd year or piggyback onto a countywide election. I think that is a very specific question, you know, your electorate, you know,
So
your
you have no
commission.
preference with that?
No, but if you stay in an odd year. I need a minimum of 4 weeks. And my preference in that scenario is the October, November 7th. For the same
That's
reasons
what
I think that we've all
the other
said, I think
cities
the
are gonna do, right.
holidays is problematic for everybody involved, right?
So that takes us out of August, eliminates that issue.
Yeah.
so I got two questions here to see if we can get to a consensus of sorts, so we can give legal. I'm gonna bifurcate the issues first and say, so. Well, maybe they're kind of intertwined a little bit, but if the idea of the multi-vote of, what is it called again?
Block
Plurality block voting is what we go with for the commission seats. And we have that race happen in November, and there's no need for a runoff. So our standard first Tuesday in November. And for mayor's seat, we will have a primary 4 weeks prior to that seat, and the runoff would be in November. That would put us October, first Tuesday of October and the first Tuesday of November. First Tuesday of October is just the mayor, if there's, there will always be a mayor, unless there's no opposition, in which case it's unopposed. And then if there's a runoff, the mayor and the three commissioners are elected in November, odd years. Would we feel the same way about the dates if we just stuck with the same group or arrangement? Would we then do primaries for the commissioners as well in October? And then runoffs if they're needed in November? Or would we want something else?
Well, I think.
Sounds like it works either way.
Now we're back to the holiday question, but, in October. Because so now it doesn't just affect one race, it could potentially affect more races, right?
Yeah,
Well, that,
If you're doing it-
that's a potential concern. I mean, I'm not wedded to it. I mean, I
Yeah.
think accommodations could be made. I mean, if I was Orthodox and I couldn't travel to the poll on Tuesday, I'd vote by mail.
And
I-
you
I'd
have
early
14
vote,
days
or I'd
of
do
early voting, I mean,
whatever.
right? You could have
I'd still be
access to
accessible to
those
that,
days.
unless I'm like Elizabeth and I wanna just trudge down there and
We
vote.
do legislation that's.
Stop picking on
the table
Elizabeth.
about,
Hey, thank you.
You're welcome.
making mail
You're mean.
voting even more restrictive though.
yeah, it's getting worse, not better.
I feel like that's
I-
something
I-
I wanna open up.
Not
Yeah.
that 14-day spread. where
I
you can
actually,
come in.
the more I think about it, I like
recommend it to
October.
you.
I like October and November. I'm gonna tell you again why I think that, particularly for the mayor's race. Is if there's gonna be a runoff. That runoff is gonna happen in November when we have historically the highest turnout. Right. That's the key thing for me,
Look, I don't disagree.
you know, 'cause the runoff.
You finally found it, you come to the. No, I agree.
So having said that and doing that.
I think that's ideal.
Then we can deal with the question of the commission. And the commission can either be grouped like it is now, or some other thing, or multi-vote, in which case that just needs one vote in November.
But we agreeing on plurality, actually, because I like the ranked choice voting, but plurality almost is the same thing in a situation like this. It's
So
very
ranked
similar.
choice, we can't
You're
get-
picking
I can tell you,
I'm gonna pick
That's
from, I
removing
mean,
the
I don't have to
groups.
choose
That's what
between
You could.
Correct?
my.
Plurality is the same,
Right.
you run for commission.
Right.
And if you are first, second, or third,
Vote for up to 3, right?
correct.
Right.
Yeah, vote for up to 3.
Right.
Yeah, they don't have to, they can vote for one,
Yeah,
and that's a
of
power
course,
vote,
yeah.
but you can
Absolutely.
vote for up to 3 and the top 3 getters.
ranked choice was
Now, what
initially
would happen if there's a
discussed
tie
under
between 3 and 4?
Gilbert one,
How do you solve
That would
that?
be a
30
runoff,
years
right?
ago.
Well, we-
And.
Draw lots or
We
something
could
like that?
provide, I guess, that if there's a tie, that they pick by lot.
Yeah, you draw by lots, you wouldn't have a
Really?
runoff.
No runoff?
Just couldn't get it done. I loved it. I mean,
Or
it
we
makes
could-
perfect sense,
so-
and then
I'm
the
sorry, I didn't hear you.
legislature changed it.
So you could do them all.
Well, ranked
October.
voting.
should
Oh, yeah.
do that,
Initially
because I
discussed
think it's
under
done.
Gilbert one, 30
If
years.
there's
ago.
In state statute, I
Um,
believe the tie
yeah,
is
it's-
lots, but I think some
We
cities
just couldn't
do
get it done.
do the runoff. Yeah, or
Yeah.
whatever, right, Swiss draw lots, you
Right.
could do
Yeah.
draw lot, you
Oh,
could do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I think have to happen.
There's partisan
There was
issues
a
with
time-
that.
No, they don't have, no, yeah, I don't believe.
Yeah, a lot of cities do
On the
runoffs.
commission, if
only
we
if
present
there's
this to
time.
them,
Right.
as we're
Yeah.
talking about right now,
I don't know.
will
There's
they?
a lot of them actually.
Yeah, there's like,
I mean,
They'll
don't
call
they
their
want-
consultants and say,
It
is
was,
this good
Good
for
for
me?
me, yeah,
Because I think the incumbents still have an advantage.
14.
oh, for sure.
Well, that's always gonna have an
Integrate
advantage.
the easier life.
They're always gonna
Names
have an
out
advantage,
there.
right?
I don't know who would be, yeah, but because remember, that's who's gonna vote. It's the existing commissioners.
It is possible that if you had 3 incumbents who were strong. Might not get anybody else running, or a token at that point. But in a case like we had this time around, where you had all 3 seats open. You might have had 2 people from the same race. That in the group here, where you only had to pick one, you might have had 2 come out of the same race. In a group election.
Yeah.
Or in a block election.
Are we concerned about this maybe inhibiting somebody, like more people from running, from from even considering running for commissioner? I
That's what he
mean,
was just saying
I
about
think
to get a
it's, I
support
think
person,
it's,
you
I
wouldn't
think
have
it's
to.
the other way.
Yeah, I think it'll encourage people to run
Encourage
because
people.
they're larger,
Yeah.
group to vote for.
The unfunded candidate is not likely to take on an incumbent. So unless there's an incumbent seat open. And then you're racing against many people in that circumstance. I think this gives you a puncher's chance, because you just gotta break out from the pack and be 1, 2, or 3.
I'd be interested to see what the commission thinks about this.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But,
Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
we'll go when if we recommend it and then reject it.
The idea for these questions to be on the November 2024 ballot.
Yes. So we need to be done by July. I
Yeah.
guess I do it, target.
And then the,
Well, we need
you
to
know,
get the city commission, if they're gonna put anything on the ballot, needs to get its resolution calling the election
Right.
to Christina by July.
Yes, exactly.
So do we, I don't know if we need a vote necessarily, because we're gonna need to
July
bring something
26th.
back, but is there a sense of
Here's goes.
what we want to instruct
Break in
legal to do?
August.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think there is a consensus, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken, about, and I commend George for the plurality, the October for mayor.
October, November.
And the plurality for the commission, November,
With a runoff for mayor in November.
right?
So is the idea of the board that the proposal should be presented in one cohesive presentation, or do you want to consider, which I think George was beginning to reference, this suggestion that one proposal of the board to the city commission might be to change the election dates and the qualifying dates and any change in terms that may be necessary. And the other proposal would be the separate issue of the plurality vote.
You know, you're given the choice. This is where we.
Yeah,
play the-
yeah, I mean, I think. You know, the plurality vote is maybe one thing that they need to decide, and then the mayor could be handled a couple different ways. It could be that that they run the primary mayor at the same time, and then you have the 4 weeks later, you have.
Yeah, but I think we should recommend against that. I
No,
think
I-
we as a
no,
group,
no.
we should say that what we want.
And not
They,
one. Also
yeah,
listen to
they
Christina.
can amend our recommendation, right? They can
Yeah, I
say
think we go
we're
with what we
gonna-
wanna recommend, you're right, let's not give them choice.
Right, so you want to recommend it's merged.
Yeah.
It's the October, it's from November to
Yeah.
October, November,
Let
and
me,
the October is the, for lack of a better term, right now, we can call it primary, but we may not
you call it.
necessarily want to put, right.
But just to be clear,
But it's the mayor's race first in October. And 4 or 5 weeks later, whatever the first Tuesday in November works out to be, because some years it might be 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Most years it's 4 weeks in odd numbered years. But the election, the first Tuesday in November would be the runoff for the mayor if need
If
be,
needed.
and the general election for the commissioners with the plurality winner.
Correct.
Yeah, now.
not plurality winner, it's a multi-block, because if you wanna be
Well,
clear that they run together, they all.
Yeah, they all run
groups.
together and whoever gets the most
Exactly.
votes does
So
not need
when
to
we
be
present
majority.
this commission, just kind of jumping ahead, are we gonna do a presentation saying, here's what we're proposing, here are the advantages of what we're proposing? I mean,
I would
or is it
expect
just
that.
gonna be?
No, my expectation would be is that we draft some kind of recommendation document that says, here's why, each of these,
Yes, yes.
or how, here's how we
Right.
got
And
to
do
it.
you
whatever.
also point out?
Well, we
Workshop it,
They'll probably
You
want
know,
us to
sit down
present
with
it
them,
with
that's
them,
a
or
good
we'll
idea.
probably maybe go and do
Maybe just
individuals and we say,
present
this is
it
why we can kind of get a sense of, we maybe meet with each of our appointees or whatever, there may be a workshop that they'll want. I assume we'll have to present to the commission at their meeting when they're taking it up as well.
Yeah,
We'll
this
let
is,
the
yeah,
legwork,
this
but-
is one of those things that want some time to digest.
Is this also the commencement? If the board presents its recommendations to the city commission, let's say by April. Because the city commission would have to have its workshop considering the board's recommendations. And then after the city commission considers it and they vote on which recommendations to accept or to tweak or to not accept or whatever. Then the matter goes back to legal so that legal can complete drafting the resolutions, calling the election to present to the elections department by, I think it's the end of July.
Yeah.
So the
I
for the
think
commencement date,
that's the
are we
question.
talking about commencing November 2025?
Well, that's a
or-
question that we haven't discussed, and maybe it's for them to decide.
Okay,
It should be on the November 24 ballot.
yes.
Right.
But the
For
commence-
implementation,
Got it.
it might be best that they say, we're gonna do it in 27.
Okay, so I'll leave
So
it
that you
blank.
have, because the current commission by then for 2025, you have obviously 3 incumbents who are running in that year. Who would still have, maybe let them decide whether they want to do a 25 or 27 commencement.
Okay, I'll leave it.
And be fair with each
Right.
other and their own,
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know which would they would prefer, whether they want to group or not, but
Mhm.
if you leave that open. You might stand a better chance. Well, it's not gonna affect me, so I'll do it later.
You know, one other thing that I think the board should, at least just to think about, you know, you are making recommendations for proposed charter amendments that will eventually, depending upon how the city commission chooses, be presented on a ballot or not.
Right.
But the same way the city commission can present proposed charter amendments, either binding or straw ballot measures, this committee could also consider recommending whatever proposed charter amendments that you're considering as a straw ballot.
No.
I'm not saying this is it,
We're
but
gonna
I'm
do-
just saying.
We're gonna do a
That's a
shot.
fallback,
Yeah.
if they're reluctant, if they don't have a vote.
We're gonna do ballots and they can decide they want them, they don't want them, they straw them, whatever they wanna do, but we're
We
gonna
let
do our.
Christina leave.
Yeah. all right.
Yeah, I
And,
think this is just a suggestion, I don't know if this is in your purview or not, but you know, I always think about voter education, right? It's so important. If you go to that block model.
Yeah.
Maybe you could consider asking the commission to dedicate some funds to voter education for that, because what I would hate is for people to go in, you know, it says commissioners. And then, you know, vote for one normally, and it's gonna
Yeah.
say vote for up to 3, that they just vote for one and go on because they didn't realize that a change
So the
occurred.
candidates do a good job of educating them as well.
I'm just
But you're right.
putting it
You're
out there,
absolutely
that
right.
that's a big
For
shift,
sure.
right? Yeah.
So does that have any impact on the voter education law that was passed where
We
cities are
can't
not allowed,
advocate.
where cities are not allowed
I
to,
think it's a difference. You're not advocating on the question.
okay,
It's
Once it
procedure.
passes, this is how you vote.
okay,
Yeah, so it's how you vote.
okay, I'm just.
Yeah, that's-
Well, you know, that law does have, it basically states that no municipal funds can be used to present an educated,
The item.
presentation, even if it's factual.
Yeah.
But there are certain exceptions. We've discussed this before. One of them is if we have public forums, which in theory, that's what the charter review board, after you're done
Yeah,
with
but
your
the-
recommendation.
I think what
This
Christina's
is
talking
different.
about is once it's
This is not-
adopted,
Once the city commission adopts
This is
it,
like we teach people how to vote.
you have to say to voters,
well, we're talking about an education even before it goes on
right, but
the
that's
ballot.
not what, I don't think that's what Christina.
No,
that
I
they
just
understand
meant, and by the
how
way,
to-
we will certainly help in this endeavor, right? We will
right.
come out and I have my whole outreach
Right.
team and we will
This is
take
just how
part in
you teach
this.
people how to
Right.
vote.
But, you know, undervoting unintentionally
Right.
Right.
is also a factor, right?
How do you
Right.
teach seniors who have voted the same way for the past 30 years to vote a different way?
Not worried about the seniors. They'll.
And I should say this too, and I should say this too.
For different reasons.
Our poll workers, if you go in person, certainly will be saying, by the way, just make sure you're paying attention, but we won't have that benefit with the vote by mail voters, right?
Right.
So just, I'm just putting that out
Well, you
there
can
as,
put a little thing in my envelope.
In the
that says,
envelope, vote for
Vote
three.
for up to 3.
yeah,
Yeah, there is a change this year.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so legal, you have what you need to get a
Yes.
question around this.
And this will be coming back January 29th.
Yeah, let's bring that back.
As-
So
as-
that,
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say that does
Yeah.
number 2,
That's number 2, January
and we
29th.
did
Call
number
me so
3.
I can tell you why vote by mail is not weird, okay?
Number
So
3,
you know
are
the
there
purpose-
any others
I'll
that
tell you
might
why.
affect?
Same,
this?
okay.
I don't
Because I'm
think
from
so.
Atlanta.
No?
It's nice
And
to see you
Atlanta has
with you in
a-
person. I used to
Literally,
see
Christina putting it up.
Christina on TV all the time.
Wait,
Oh, well,
Whenever
But we
there's a
don't-
controversy over elections.
Well, I hope I'm raising
you.
your voter confidence.
No,
in
No, I
conversation
now
time.
now you're making me think that I don't wanna go out in the rain to the fire department.
Well, early voting is the absolute best.
Early voting is-
Husband to vote by mail. He likes to go in person, you know, I say, I'll bring your ballot in, I'll watch it go through the machine. He's like, no, I wanna go in person, I wanna feed it through the machine.
that's me.
I want my.
Run the gauntlet, get your sticker.
Vote by- I mean, early voting
You're
is
right. I
amazing,
think
not
it's
so
sticker.
convenient.
I'm just giving you this
Vote
sticker.
early, but.
Suggestion is you should send the sticker with the ballot, right?
Yeah, that-
Christine? Christine,
Yeah, I know.
Can you put the sticker
Put it in the
included
envelope.
in the ballot, in the envelope?
For the
So,
absentees.
so we've tried that, but our vote by mail processing unit moved so fast that they were getting jammed.
Hi, Michael,
Ah.
you know how to do, when I go vote in person, I'll bring you a sticker.
And I would be remiss if I didn't mention, if you drop it off at a drop box.
Oh, I know.
You get
Right.
You will get your sticker.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
It's only if
Good
you
to
mail
know.
it in that we
Yeah.
obviously.
Am I the only one that votes in person?
I vote in person, but I vote early.
You vote in
Or
person
I do it
early?
early voting.
Okay,
Thank you.
but I vote early.
Christina, thank you so
I vote
much.
early.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Vote by mail is just too
You know,
easy.
as this develops, if you have more questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
You know, you're where you go.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, so so it's
You
1,
can check-
2, and 3
You can check to see that they
is
have.
done. So now we're up to 4
Like Tammy.
and
And wait, if there's any goodness left after Michael.
what happened to the salary? Oh, sorry. Okay, so
ENC.
I'm sorry, so then
Well, four.
5 and 6.
Four shouldn't take that long.
Yeah, and I'm just, it's 5 and 6 election shoot.
We covered 5. That was to give you the opportunity to talk about the different types of voting.
Right.
603 is cleanup provision.
Okay, okay. All right, so let's go back to 4 then and knock this one out if we can. I think we've had sufficient conversation, but let's
Yeah.
hopefully get to a finish line.
Yeah.
And a vote on this one. So number 4 is.
Oh, no, thank you.
Number 4 compensation?
No, 4 is the vacancy.
Oh, okay.
But 4 shouldn't take long.
Okay.
So we're speaking of Charter Section 2.07, which is the vacancies in city commission provision. The board has discussed that several times. And at the last meeting, the board approved the proposed ballot question for that. So now what you have in front of you is the proposed text, which incorporates the changes. And basically, there are mainly 2 parts of this proposed text that I'd like to discuss with you. The second part is what I refer to as mechanical changes, which deal more with changes that have been made in order for the city internally to be able to ensure that the procedure itself comports with other related laws such as the resigned umbrella law. That deals with the scheduling of the elections, the installment of officers. The first part are the policy decisions that this board has already voted on and told us that you want in Charter 207. And those basically are to provide that there is an understanding that the appointment procedure shall occur, but if the appointment is not met, then there shall be an election. And that was the fix that we needed in order to resolve the issue that the city previously dealt with when we had the deadlock on the city commission at some point, which was eventually resolved. The other policy matter that the board voted on approved is that when it comes to the decision of making the appointment, the individual member of the city commission who caused the vacancy, that person is not part of the decision-making process. And then the final policy decision, which the board has voted on,
Or
which
you mean
is,
us, right?
I'm
This
sorry,
is
yeah,
the
when
board
I'm
saying.
board, I'm referring to the charter, this charter
This is,
review board.
you're talking about the text on 34 and 35.
And the other policy decision that the board voted on was that the appointment itself should not be by majority vote, which is the present situation of the city commission. It should be by supermajority vote. And that's all been incorporated. That's what you have in front of you.
And this meets the tax requirement 75 and all that?
Yeah.
Well, you
Yeah.
guys voted on the question already last week. This is
You already
actually the
approved,
chart
right.
text that you're
Right.
looking at, and you wanted to see it. You-
Right.
So does this
And-
require a
and-
vote then, or no?
Yeah, I mean, you guys wanted to see the.
Right, we just-
Yeah, the board should have a vote.
It should,
Right,
You haven't?
right. And just that,
Consistent with what we've done, right?
Yes.
yeah,
Right.
this is what you've done, right? And just so that you will kind of understand big picture where this goes. When your recommendations are presented to the city commission, and the city commission votes on whichever proposals, again, they accept, they don't accept, or whatever the city commission on its own initiative wants to place before the voters. When the ballot measures are presented to the voters, they just see the ballot
I see the
question.
question.
But the resolution calling the elections was set forth as an exhibit, the ballot questions with the text.
Okay,
This way, the public has copies of everything. We'll see
All right.
not only the ballot questions, but the text.
okay.
Okay, I move we adopt the ballot question and the text.
Pardon me?
Sorry, what?
Bullet point 4 on the draft ballot question says clarify election and installation dates regarding vacancies due to resignation, question mark, what?
Right, well,
The question
the
mark
way,
applies to
the way
whole
the question is formatted at the very end of the question,
Shall.
Oh.
it's a
got it.
question,
So
Okay.
it's doing all these things.
right?
Oh.
You have to have, you have to have a question.
And the clarifying the election is that it takes place after runoff and all that stuff.
It clarifies several issues dealing with
All right, so I have a motion from
Yes.
Sam, second,
Second,
she raised her hand first, so.
I'm sorry, who is it?
I want
Elizabeth.
to fight with a little.
Fine.
Not.
Oh.
Yes, stop picking on her, man.
Yeah, I know, man. There you go. So motion by Sam, a second by Elizabeth, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, unanimous.
And just for clarity, it was unanimous or by unanimous consent to direct on number 2, the city attorney to draft a question for next.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah,
I just
do we need a
wanted to-
motion on that, or?
By unanimous consent. we
Wait,
all agree.
what was it?
Unanimous consent directing you to draft the question for January 29th on item 2. And the other vote.
The plurality vote and the election in October, and the
Okay,
election.
well, right, but I was planning to present, if the board concurs, at the January 29th meeting, it'll be the text along with the ballot question.
Yeah, that's what,
Okay.
that's what I said.
And it'll be one ballot question.
One ballot question, so we
Okay.
can do what we just did for it
Yeah.
as well.
Right.
Approve it and put it on the
Okay.
list of done.
Good.
So that was number 4.
Yes.
Right, so
Okay,
we're done
and
with
then,
code.
so let's go to number 6. You wanted 6, or this is just
That's 202,
cleanup
right?
stuff, right?
6 is 6.03. Do you want to discuss that?
I think the board, if you all concur, needs to resolve 202, the salary.
Yeah, we did into that, and 2, but I thought 6 was just cleanup language that is pretty
Okay.
straightforward. I'm happy to go either way, but
Okay, yeah.
unless this requires a lot of.
With that section 603?
Correct, yes, Jeannie, so page
Right,
39.
603 is basically, these are amendments which reflect, which Ralph and I feel need to be made, mainly in order, number 1, to comport with state law, but most importantly, to clarify the existing state of the law. And basically, with regards to the first provision, we right now have had for years in the city charter section 603, a durational residency requirement that individuals who seek to qualify for election to the city commission have resided in the city for 1 year prior to qualifying. And that is language that is common with many municipalities where they say 1 year prior to qualifying. You may have read recently that the Third District Court of Appeal had a ruling with regards to a City of Miami case where there was a challenge made by an individual who sought to disqualify an individual who was running for office in the City of Miami. Miami also has the same language. Long story short, the Third District Court of Appeal said that it is necessary to have the word immediately proceeding in order to make sure that you're not just talking about somebody who at some point lived for 1 year. It had to have been immediately proceeding. I will tell you that in terms of statutory construction, the city of Miami Beach intended that when this language was put in years ago, and in fact has adhered to that interpretation since its adoption by the voters. So it is not changing anything substantively. It's the way the city's always interpreted and what intended it as written. So this is mainly clarification in order to comport with the recent decision of the Third District. The remaining language that's in red about qualifying by petition is put in for this reason. We wanted to clarify, and again, this is the way the city clerk has always followed section 603. The city of Miami Beach has always interpreted 603 as such, that when an individual qualifies by petition in the city of Miami Beach to run as member of the city commission, that they have to file all of the same qualifying papers that any individual who is not qualified by petition, but is qualified by the fee method has to file. The only difference is that if you qualify by petition, you don't have to pay the qualifying fee, and that comports with state law. So this is just clarifying that, just to make sure that it is clear. And that's what you have in front of you for these 603 tweaks.
Yeah, they seem pretty housekeeping and order.
Yeah, Yeah, and I will tell you, with regards to, you may ask, why have I not given you a ballot question? Because this may be one of those that we
I was just
incorporate
gonna ask you that.
under the heading of obsolete or need to, being clarified person just to comport with
That's
state law.
exactly what I wanted to ask you, is we didn't
Right.
want to burn a question on this.
Absolutely.
Right, so.
So if we
what's
could
the-
have the approval for
I'll
that.
make a motion that we
Motion for
adopt the
Sam.
amendments to 603.
Second from Ronald, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? Hearing none, unanimous.
We're on a roll here.
Okay, and I just want to say one more thing about 603.
That's the
603.
beat.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
No, but it relates back to your number 2 that you approved today.
Matter.
603 sets forth a qualifying date in September. So the changes that you just approved do not deal with the change in the qualifying date that I'll be presenting to you at the January 29th meeting based on the vote that you had
Yeah,
earlier.
that would be subject to, if they approved, then change the dates. right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay,
Next.
Okay.
all right, so next is
So now-
item, where are we now, 7?
Yeah.
Now we're on to,
Okay,
if that's
Yeah.
seems to be our favorite topic.
Yeah,
right.
see, you managed to squeeze it in.
Well, here's the thing.
This- Before we go, this
Okay.
is now 2 questions, all right?
It is. It is pursuant to the board's direction at the last meeting. For transparency purposes, the board wanted to have language which had more information to the public so that they saw it wasn't just an increase from 10,000 to 60,000 proposed compensation for the mayor, or from 6,000 to 55,000, because that's such a huge jump. To have some explanation. Because of that, I needed to split it into 2 questions because of the words. So
Understood.
that's what you have in front of you. Number 1, or that they're not numbered, but the first question that you see in front of you is deals with this more transparency, more information informing the voters. The second question deals with the ethics issues that the board had discussed. If the board decides to pursue those, the first issue was gift prohibition, which had been discussed at prior meetings in the board. After an explanation of what that meant, the board decided that rather than prohibit all gifts, which again is very far reaching, could have unintended consequences, because a gift under state law is basically anything that you receive, unless it falls within the exceptions. And the exceptions are not that broad, they're pretty narrow. So the board requested at the last meeting to amend or to tweak the gift prohibition, the proposed gift prohibition, to gifts that are under a certain dollar value, and any and all gift from a lobbyist or a vendor, because right now, under applicable ethics laws, elected officials or any individual who is subject to the ethics laws, which is broader than the elected officials, are prohibited only from receiving a gift from a lobbyist or a vendor if it exceeds $100. Again, the exceptions still apply. So what you see in front of you for the second question is, I have tailored that gift prohibition consistent with the discussion from the Charter Review Board last meeting. And the second bullet point is the same issue that you've all been discussing about a requirement that the elected officials request an opinion from the Ethics Commission for any transaction or contract they wish to enter into during their term of employment. I just want to say one thing about that. You've all been reading in the Miami Herald about what's been going on at a neighboring municipality. But there was a recent, trying to be tactful,
You
There
can say
was
the
a-
word Miami.
there was a comment, a quote by Jose Arroyo, Executive Director of the Dade County Ethics Commission, where he referenced that, and I want to, if you all have read that, or for purposes of whoever is listening to this meeting, clarifying something. Jose stated, as is the case, that the county code right now does have limited provisions where it requires certain individuals to request ethics opinions. However, What you have proposed goes beyond county law. Because county law right now only requires certain autonomous personnel, not members of the commission, but certain autonomous personnel in plain English, members of appointed boards, that they must request when they seek to do business with the city. They must request an ethics opinion prior to submitting a bid or putting in a request to do business with the city. What you are requesting here goes beyond state law or county law. There is no requirement in county law that requires a member of a city commission to request an opinion when it deals with their private life. And that's what you're doing here. So just want to clarify that.
Can I, before we jump in, I have a couple questions, so just to clarify. First thing is the prohibition on gifts. The way it reads now, it says prohibiting mayor and commissioner from accepting any gift as regulated, defined by the state and county ethics law. The gift, right? That's what we're talking about.
The gift,
What is defined
Yes,
from a lobbyist or vendor. Is a developer included as a lobbyist or a vendor?
it could be if they're a lobbyist. And if they're a vendor.
I think we would want to.
But then George's question, yeah.
Well,
Sorry.
that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that it is a lobbyist and a vendor, and those have specific definitions under state and county ethics laws. If a real estate developer is a lobbyist, because a real estate developer could be,
Yeah, but if they're not,
if they're not,
should
then they're
still
not
prohibit it.
included.
I'm saying let's not, I'm saying let's maybe broaden this. To capture what we may wish to capture, rather than leaving it subject to determination. And I think, don't we have that, don't we say where developers can't
In-
contribute?
In the in the city's campaign
We define,
finance law, there are a real estate developer and a vendor and a lobbyist for a real estate developer, as that term is specifically defined because it has a specific definition in the city's campaign finance
I
law.
would want it to
And a
be as broad.
lobbyist for a real estate developer or a lobbyist for a vendor is prohibited from giving or making campaign contributions.
So I would maybe use the same definition, don't,
Same language.
same, you know.
So
copy.
you want to include real estate developer also.
Yes. Yeah, that's where the good
Right.
schools are gonna come
Do
from.
you need,
And then primarily when,
right, and do you need to it seems redundant to say lobbyists for real estate developer and lobbyists generally, right?
But they're different lobbyists that represent
Right.
different entities.
Yeah, there are some lobbyists that do not represent it.
No, but I think what you're saying, if you're a lobbyist, you're a lobbyist. whether
Yeah,
it's for a
yeah, lobbyist
developer
lobbyist,
or
you
a
don't
bidder.
need to be a lobbyist for a real estate developer or a lobbyist. A lobbyist is a lobbyist.
Right, but a real estate developer may not be a lobbyist, and as a
Right.
result, you wanna
Right.
capture them.
Right.
It's
So
just
question,
clear.
do you want to, now we're talking about definitions of real estate developer. Under the city's campaign finance law, it's a
Past 12 months. or
very
something like that,
limited definition of real estate developer. And real estate developer is not now regulated or defined in state and county law.
That's what we're trying to,
And that's what
trying to
we're-
rope it in, trying to
right.
rope it in. So-
Right.
To include that.
So
So there's two,
but I
here's
think
my point.
Dean's question is, do we have to identify by definition what
what a real estate developer
what a
is.
real estate developer
Right.
is?
Right, because, we're getting back to when I reference back. State county ethics law, I'm talking about the definitions under the gift law for lobbyist or vendor. Real estate developer is not included there. Now, they would be included again, I don't mean to be
I
redundant,
know, but-
if they're a lobbyist.
Well, that was why my question was, this parentheses, maybe I asked it wrong, this parentheses here, as regulated and defined in the state and county, does it apply to gift? the
Yes,
Word gift, or to everything? Are you defining the word gift?
as regulated, defined, references the preceding word,
Gift,
noun, which is gift.
okay, so,
And so they do get, but they are able to get a gift up to $100 because that's what's.
Right now, a
I mean, we're not
member of the city
proposing a
commission-
change to that, right?
No.
With this language, or are we?
this is changing existing law, it's making it stricter. Right now, a member of the city commission, because we're just focusing upon the commission members, can receive a gift as defined in state and county law from a lobbyist or vendor so long as it does not exceed $100.
So we're saying. you can't
Now
do that
we're
at all.
saying they can't
Zero.
receive anything, $0.
And then we're saying from anybody else,
But there are exceptions. There are exceptions which will still apply. Then we're saying any other gift.
Do we list the exceptions anywhere?
No,
We
we
need that.
don't.
I think we should do that. I think you need to, I think people, in order to understand this, need the exceptions.
Well, we can't put it in the ballot question,
no.
but we can
it's actually-
attach it,
I'd
we
like
can
to-
attach it to the.
I'd like to
res-
know. I
Right.
don't even know who the exceptions are myself.
Right, yeah, I'm feeling the same way.
Well, for the
It
exceptions,
just felt like this was too narrow. I feel like there's a loophole here that I drive a truck. through.
is.
And, you know, and the developer, and by the way, you know, I even draw the distinction between a real estate developer and a real estate developer doing business before the city or whatever. You know, there are a bunch of people live in Miami Beach who are real estate developers. You own real estate, right?
Yeah.
So you could considerably be a real estate, but you're not a developer seeking relief or business or whatever in Miami Beach. There's a difference in my view. You know, I own property in Texas, that's, you know, there's nothing I'm gonna do here. But if I'm doing business here, so the campaign laws defines what? Business here, right?
let me pull it up,
Pardon?
yeah, to my recollection, the city's campaign finance law, I could pull it up real quickly. But I believe
I think
that it
it's
says
prior
for real
12
estate
years
developer,
or-
if you have a comp plan amendment
Something
that's
before the
pending,
commission.
it's something before the city.
Well, I think that's always been our intention, is to regulate people doing business with the city. We don't care if they're property in
That's
Texas.
my point.
We don't
That's
care
my
if
point.
they're property in Texas and, yeah, that's, yeah,
I
I
happen to
agree.
be a developer, but not here.
So I think that we need to make this clear that it's people doing business with our city, within our city and meeting votes
Relief
by the
at some
commission,
point, yeah.
right?
That's, you said it.
So how do we do that?
Could be a just a developer with interest, like with.
Who owns
It
property in
doesn't
the
have to
village,
be-
who owns properties with the city?
But we
Just
can't,
by-
we can't use the same definition we use in finance. Reform, finance,
Well, that's where we started, yeah, it's just whatever it applies to them, applies to this. It makes your list easier, you have a list of those people, right?
Yes.
You're required to keep a list of those individuals.
You could say as defined in section blah, 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 in the ballot.
At a minimum, I'd like to be
Defined
there.
somewhere else.
Where it's like, if we loop them in for campaign
lot of
contribution, we
words.
should loop them in.
yeah,
for
that's
Yes,
a problem.
a lot
And
of
it's,
words.
absolutely.
So the idea is that people who are doing, for lack of a better term, people who are doing business with the city.
Right.
So it's
The ones that are
lobbyists,
gonna carry
vendors, real estate developers, no gifts from them. But of course, the term gift is regulated and defined with
Yeah.
the exceptions that apply. And what we could do
Like
is,
a family member.
can't put it in the back, yeah,
A
right.
family member was an
But we
exception.
briefly discussed with you what the exceptions are, relatives, but relatives that are specifically defined. If you receive certain gifts, and then you turn it over to the governmental entity, like if some person presents a marble statue to you to put in the dais, then you can accept it, a member of the commission can accept it and then turn it over.
Yeah, that's. a-
But there are
we have
other,
this.
there are various other exceptions. And again, we've already discussed that when it comes to certain gifts that an individual receives, remember, from the city of Miami Beach, if a member of the commission receives it from the city of Miami Beach as the donor, and that individual member of the city commission is performing a public service, that is also exempt from the definition of gift. So the bottom line is what you want, what you would like, if I understand you correctly, is to expand on this gift prohibition within the ballot measure to prohibit basically gifts of any value.
same-
Members of the commission can't accept if the
Using the
person is
same
lobbyist vendor.
logic as what we did with the campaign plan.
Right,
We did that,
okay.
I don't know, 15 or 20 years ago.
Right, and do you want to, for individuals who are not doing business with the city, which falls under the all other gifts, where mayor, commissioner, know or reasonably should know the value, are you still concerned with that?
We're gonna pick you're saying you want us to fill in the blank here?
Well, I'm asking number one, do you still want to have that?
That's a great question.
Because again, that has far-reaching implications. Because it is a gift from your next door neighbor who has no business with the city. or a gift from a relative that does not fit within the definition of relative, who wants to send you two nice bottles of wine that exceed X amount of dollars.
But isn't that covered by the language about? Or maybe we should include it with the language before any gift is accepted, you gotta run it by the ethics commission or something.
We don't know that the requirement to request the opinion is not for gifts. The requirement to request the opinion is for private contractual relations that a member of the city commission during his or her tenure will have. Private employment or contractual
Okay, that's
relations.
right, that's
It's
right.
not-
But I'm curious though, in regard to the gift, how do we want to achieve our purpose without, you know, getting to the point of absurdity?
That's
We
right,
don't,
that's right.
we don't want to eliminate gifts from friends, from
That's right.
neighbors,
Relatives.
That's right.
Right,
However,
somebody you do business with in your personal life, you know.
It's
Yeah.
not Santa, I mean.
Right.
Yeah.
He-
so the
Someone says
question
you buy some
is,
chocolates or
what is the
something.
concern
It's
that,
crazy.
what is the issue that's concerning you?
The issue.
Because
dealing
the
with
issue is people doing
influence.
business with
That's
the
the
city,
issue,
and if
right.
the issue is not other persons, then that second issue about all other gifts where mayor or commissioner know or should reasonably know about, that would, then that's
Well, so
Does
can we,
affect
can we, okay, maybe what we do. is,
right.
can we
Plus, the
say that
value of that,
The first bullet here, so that from a lobbyist or vendor, you're gonna expand it a
real
bit.
estate developer pursues.
Can we then say, and any other person or entity doing business with the city? And then delete the second one?
But that's not the same as receiving a gift from, let's say, somebody who doesn't necessarily want to do business at that moment, but could potentially decide to do
Okay, so
business with, you know what I mean? Like,
Anyone doing business or if you've given a gift, you're prohibited for 12 months, I mean. I think did that.
look at the language of other statutes like this? Or ordinances like this from other cities? Didn't we have that or?
Well, I will tell you,
We're most
I-
advanced of this
we
stuff.
didn't do that, but
We didn't?
we are the most advanced, because there is no, cities are not,
Going Julie, to your point,
right,
if I remember correctly, what we did with campaign finance is we said, if you're a developer, you can't contribute. You have something,
Right.
and a developer is defined as something before the
Right.
settlement. And I think you're also prohibited from seeking relief for 12 months or something like that after.
If
an
you
election.
do give.
If
If
so, if
you
you're
do-
not a developer now,
Right.
you don't mean that,
right.
and you gave,
oh, right,
you're kind of 12 months burned out before you can come and ask for something.
Right.
I think that's how we
Yeah.
dealt with that.
I believe so.
And
So we
so
okay.
if you're doing business with the city now, you shouldn't give. If you're not, and you give, then you shouldn't be
So
able
how
to
does
come to
this
the city for
apply
12 months.
to non-business entities that are, you know.
So let me give you like an example, because you need to be fair, say. Use a big one, so say the company that operates the convention center, management agreement with the convention center, they're doing business with the city, I forget what their name is now. And they come and they give a commissioner a gift basket. Something more than $100. Under this scenario, you would say you can't accept it. But say their competitor comes along and gives the commissioner a gift basket. Unless we do something here, the commissioner could accept it. And
That's
put
business.
that person and then put the
Business
competitor in,
transaction.
that's not a business, transaction, it's a
I mean,
gift,
it
but
could be
then,
Potentially.
right, but then,
Right,
and
but
then
I'm
there's a
saying-
bid, and so then I
Right,
come
but
along.
bid,
And then I come along and say, why don't we put this thing out to bid? And let me bid on it.
Right, but I'm asking, how do we address the, you know, somebody that you golf with, but then
Right.
eventually maybe they wanna do business.
Well, that's what you gotta
with
put
you,
you
but,
gotta put a window around it, 12 months or some other period of time that says,
Mhm.
after you receive the gift, you can. That's how we do campaign contributions, like, if you contributed to the campaign, you then can't come before the city for 12 months.
So if you impart a gift of more than $100, then you cannot do business with the city. Is that what
For
you're
12
saying?
months.
For 12 months. I have a question. That's.
I'd like to make it 18.
Whatever, I mean, you can.
I thought we weren't saying 100, I thought we were.
I was thinking 100 is
Zero.
really, oh, you're saying zero?
No.
I'm thinking like
I thought-
250.
I
No,
thought
I'm
that
thinking,
this-
I'm thinking
this-
you
This
delete this last
proposal
line.
is zero.
Yeah, this proposal is 0, not 100.
Okay, okay.
Right, this proposal
any
is zero.
cost.
So we're
Right.
basically speaking of. And I'll need to revisit the campaign finance. I haven't looked at it in a while, but I understand the idea of what you're saying, that the idea is persons doing business with or seeking relief from this city, but it cannot be all persons seeking relief, because if you have at least consistent with the campaign finance laws, if you have a homeowner who doesn't have a lobbyist and is just him or herself, that's not covered unless you are a lobbyist vendor or a real
Yeah,
estate
I'm not-
developer, and
But a homeowner, unless, they come for their own relief, I've got a noise complaint or something like that, I'm feeling that different, but if they came and said, hey, on the side, I run a dishwashing company and, there's a bid for dishwashers at the convention center. Consider me, then yes,
Mhm.
I would say that's a problem.
What about a homeowner who wants to get an easement on the side of his property?
From the city,
From
I
the
would
city,
say we shouldn't give a gift.
you know
I-
what,
I think-
I understand what you're saying, I can come up with something.
Yeah.
It's basically following the lead of the campaign finance, but just that I get clarification, are you talking about, is it, from in 12 months thereafter?
I heard Mike say 18, I'm fine with 18 months.
And I think a year is really kind of too short.
I mean,
Do
it
we
takes
need
that
a,
long.
I mean, does there need to be a cure provision or not?
I don't know.
Well,
Will
under
they take
the,
their gift back?
under the definition,
Here's
so
your problem.
remember,
I didn't realize this would prevent me from doing business, give me
No,
my
no.
bottle back.
that's a very important point, Ron, because you could have somebody who just, quite innocently, oops, I forgot.
Right.
But as we've discussed before, when
Is there a
and if
waiver?
this goes before the ethics commission takes this things into consideration. But
Can the
that
commission
is
grant
why
the
it's so important, excuse me, we have the language regulated or defined, because one of the definitions is where the recipient of the gift has not provided equal consideration within 90 days. So under that example, that if the city commissioner receives a gift, so long as they have provided equal consideration for the value of that gift, then it is acceptable.
What's consideration? I don't know if that starts to seem.
Hey, they pay for
Oh, they pay for it, okay,
They pay
okay,
for
I'm
the
thinking like,
value.
wait a minute.
So here's a sort of, well, it's not a sort of, it's a real life happening right now situation. So MDPL is a public / funded by the city, but also accepts
nonprofit, yeah.
accepts donations from us to be members. And they also are funded by us. So there's a proposal and was voted on where there will be 9-foot kiosks and the vendor is TKE. They gave $50,000 to the MDPL. The commission approved they approved the ordinance, and the vendor should, since they are a public-private, how does that,
Well,
that's
this
an
applies-
ethical
yeah.
thing, but it's also
Well,
it's
But this is
also,
only applying to the mayor and commission.
right, yeah, and this is
That's a-
there personally, because all the time you have a public accommodations being done where, a development agreement is done.
Yeah.
And they agree to provide a part or something in exchange for.
That could be a prohibition that
But-
they put into the contract with all of the nonprofits and say you can't accept.
this is what I'm trying to
That
get
the
at.
commission
because
can do.
This
And
is,
I also
it
want
goes
to
to
clarify something.
ethics.
The gift laws, the state and county gift laws apply to individuals. They
Okay,
don't apply to the entity.
Or-
So the city of Miami Beach, for instance, just by way of example, the applicable ethics laws do not prohibit the entity, City of Miami Beach Municipal Corporation, from receiving a gift from a lobbyist or a vendor or real estate developer. Yeah, they can accept the gift, so long as the city uses that gift for a public purpose.
so
Yeah, but in your instance, what?
you understand what
I
I'm
think I
saying?
know what you're
Yeah,
saying,
I-
they gave a gift to MDPL in hopes that MDPL might maybe say, hey, this is not such a bad idea. And support it, though they're not voting on it. Maybe what the commission ought to do in a circumstance like that is to have, if MDPL comes and speaks to it, to disclose that they receive any gifts.
That's,
Something like that,
can we do something like that? We can't.
not in the charter. I don't
No,
think.
and-
think
and
that's a council-
I would not recommend the city commission the city commission has taken a position on that and. That's not within the purview of the. charter.
So bringing it back to here then, so you're gonna try to expand this.
Yes, I will expand the
So are we
first,
dropping
but
the
the
second
idea of the
line?
all other gifts. From what I understand, the board is saying that's not something, that's not the concern that you're focused upon. And the second bullet point that we've retained about
Yeah.
requesting the opinion.
Yeah, except let me comment to the group and tell me what you guys think about it, because I know what you did. And I understand, I think why you did it, but I thought, at least my thought was to tie this about getting an ethics opinion on outside employment
I know,
was tied to the salary.
I know.
And so now this is looking like two questions, one being the salary question standalone, which is not gonna help it pass very often, very likely, versus putting that into the first question.
Yeah,
It could say in the second question as well, well, no, it's mooted, well, because maybe the second question passes, so maybe you wanna ask it twice. But I think I still would wanna see something like that second bullet in this first question.
George, I totally get that, and I tried. I could not. If
Is it
the
just,
board
it's
was,
just the number of words that we're talking about?
well, yes. Yes, because if the idea is to expand on an explanation within the ballot question for transparency purposes about the increase in compensation, that alone is 75 words.
Yeah, but like, for example, I started, from city. From city. Per charter 202, I mean, we can start to carve out perhaps and.
Yeah.
Squeeze it in, but I think that my purpose anyway was to say this, we're gonna ask for a raise, or we're gonna do it in exchange for something. And this is now falling out as just, ask for the raise. And I think it doesn't enhance the benefit of it passing. Plus, it's the trade that we were trying to get at.
Is it legal to link two questions that to say that in the event that 202 passes, then something like so that,
Applies to 202 as well, and.
yeah, that.
I don't know, the
202
voters are voting on this separately.
Yeah, I know they are, but you could say that it's contingent upon 202.
The city has done that. I wouldn't recommend it. I don't think I think it could be interpreted different ways by the voters.
Yeah, okay.
If you-
That doesn't solve the problem.
Huh?
The
So this still
perception
needs
of-
some work.
I would,
But George, I
Has to be
understand
with
what you're
the-
saying,
yeah.
believe me, and I really, that was my goal.
yeah,
But once we start expanding on an explanation, which by the way. The purpose of the voter education, I know I'm telling you all what you already know, is to provide the explanation.
no, I
Rather
get
than
it,
put it
but
in the ballot
I
language.
understand, but maybe maybe there's some extra words here that we can. Like total annual earnings from the city, of course it's from the city. There's
Not necessarily,
No,
not necessarily.
total
No,
this is
not
about the
necessarily.
compensation that the city commissioner is gonna make.
why are you so concerned about this not passing? I mean, if the voters, what we're doing here is we're actually trying to help get this passed by providing more information, and the voters can make a decision on whether, now that they understand the compensation better, whether or not they want to increase it.
Yeah.
I don't know why I don't think we need to tie the gift thing to it. I think
No, not
let
against-
the voters decide on each of these two
Right,
separately.
so I'll give,
Yeah, and maybe it won't pass. Well, then so be it.
No, no.
That's what the voters want.
but here's the second bullet in question 2 is irrelevant to gifts. It's just there.
Right, George is talking about, if I understand you, George, you're talking about having a single ballot question with the compensation increase and the corresponding requirement for members of the city commission to request opinions.
Cause that, exactly.
And what I'm saying is that
Then have a
I
separate one that's
totally
gift.
get that was what the board wanted, but once the board changed its direction, or at least expanded on the direction where you wanted more of an explanation about
Yeah,
the
but
question, that's when,
I get it, but not at the expense of losing the question. That's
Well,
my point. I don't know
then
how-
you-
No,
Then-
I don't like the idea that I feel like I have to agree to a salary increase in order to get, you know, them to agree to take less gifts. I mean.
No, but I'm not saying the gift part. I'm only saying the second bullet in the
The
gift part.
employment.
The employment thing, because that's what we said, is if you're gonna get a salary, we want you to not take outside employment, or at least get an ethics opinion on that.
Okay.
That's what we were
Okay,
talking
not
about.
the gifts.
Right.
The gifts is a standalone question, it'll be on its own, and I'm not suggesting that one. But I think that was important to the logic of the salary increase, the whole thing of what's happening in the other cities. And
Well, then how about
it feels like
this?
we're losing that piece of it
Right,
to try to give more explanation. I get that
I
it's
understand.
valuable.
right.
It's not as.
How about this? I did draft this other alternative, because I know that that was something that the board was concerned with. Merging the idea of the comp increase with requesting the opinion. You cannot have the full explanation that you have in this first version here of the comp question. But this is an alternative that I drafted, and I apologize, I don't have copies.
But
to hand out.
before you do that, Julie, you were about to say something.
I
sorry.
was, I just, the way it's worded, the first line explains, I think, what exists currently.
Right.
And it seems almost like a little redundant because you have, instead of the charter's 10,000
That was my-
6,000 compensation amount. So I was just wondering.
Those words we
maybe
cut out.
Consolidate somehow. But it's not quite clear. It just seems like there's a jump from 10,000 to 60,000, even with the explanation that. But I don't find it, I'm just, even as I was part of this, and I still don't find it easy to.
Yeah.
kind of
Well,
digest.
you know, again, in the drafting of ballot language. The goal is to certainly incorporate what the Charter Review Board wants, but also to draft a question that there are certain questions that may provoke a little bit more interest, a little bit more need to be very, very clear what's being amended.
Yeah,
And that's, but here's
But
the
I wanna be clear, I
alternative.
wanna hear your alternative.
Here's the
I wanna be clear.
alternative. Okay.
My position is I want the explanation if we can get it, but I don't wanna
Well-
trade that
Yeah,
for this. And so what's your,
I mean, I can keep working on it, but I have to tell you, believe me, I know exactly what it is you want, but having that explanation in is what brings this to the need to separate the two. But here's an alternative. It doesn't have the full explanation.
Sure. read it out.
Okay, show Charter 202 be amended. So there are 2 bullet points. The first bullet point, requiring mayor and commissioners request state and county ethics opinions regarding the post-November 24, it's
Yeah,
a
this
requirement,
thing.
right? And the second bullet point,
Yeah.
providing mayor and commissioners no longer receive annual compensation established in 1966 of 10,000 for mayor and 6,000 for commissioner, but instead receive a total annual compensation, 60,000 for mayor and 55 for commissioners, in addition to pension and health.
That might be
That's
better.
great.
I like that.
That's
Yeah,
great.
I like
That
better.
works.
That's
Okay.
more simple.
Now, what that does not have, though, it does not have that first line about the total or the current.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, I think it's.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, so question, and I'm
That's-
sorry
That's
to
compelling.
But
It's
it's-
it's-
but that's been in there
keep going,
before,
but
and it has
it's
passed.
already 7:46. I could stay here as long as you
Yeah,
want, but
no,
so
no,
question,
no, we don't
board
wanna do
members,
that.
if you like that question, then do you want to
I like
have
that.
a separate question for the gift issue
Yes.
that you do?
Yes,
Okay,
Well, how
and,
about,
and,
just
yeah.
maybe one, tell me if this would work. Mayor, that Shell 202 damage is the total compensation, all earnings 60,000, and then put in parentheses, currently. X thousand.
Yeah.
currently 41.
You know, so instead of having 2 paragraphs, have
Collector's
just one, and in addition to pension, so that instead of having that whole thing up there, you just say. Currently, you put in parentheses, currently X thousand.
I know, but the problem with currently, is, if you're saying the charter now is 6,000 currently 55. I mean, currently
It might be
X,
confusing, but.
or if it's the charter says 10,000 compensation for the mayor, currently 41,000. A voter would read that and say, what do you mean it's currently 40? It's supposed to be 10.
So Gene, let me suggest this.
Yeah.
We're gonna answer it today. I
Okay,
think you know what we are
I do.
looking for.
I
Let's
do.
try for January 29th.
I do. But in concept, the board approves this language that I just read you. I'll try to tweak it a little more, but
You just see it in writing.
Let's see it in writing and
I-
let's try to do a little more.
Yeah, I'm still concerned because the way you just read it is exactly what has been presented in the past.
you want me to read it one more time?
No,
No, no,
I
I'm
want you
saying
to figure
that
out a way
part
that you can
about.
mention the 41 and the 46,000.
I know,
Let's see,
I know. But the goal is
to
to
marry
put
the
it in one
salary
question, the compensation and the request and the opinion. That's the goal.
for the post-employment.
Yes.
Then a second question that
For
is
the
just the
gift,
gift.
right, understanding,
Current with the. I mean.
if I can get it, in, if I can, right,
I
right.
which is fine.
right.
That's for January 29th. I move we
Yes.
adjourn.
The requirements.
That always takes precedent, right? So is that, Gene, do you have what you need? Are we done, Rob?
Public comment, there's no public comment.
Is there a second?
No, I said, I was just gonna say.
Are you guys second, somebody second this motion?
I got a question, Steve.
Yeah.
On page, what is that, Marcus, page 43, the 202.
That's the existing charter.
No, I know that. Is that eliminated and it just, this one's imposed?
Right,
Because
well-
this one includes, the current one includes the lifetime term limit. And also includes what the annual compensation.
Well, Charter 202, as you could see, deals with three things. It deals with terms, term limits and compensation.
Right,
But the amendment that you are proposing only deals with the compensation language. It is not changing at all the term limit language, which is why on page 42, when you see the draft text, under the title of, where it says draft charter text, and there's the title of Charter 202, you see there are three little asterisks.
right.
That connotes that the language above it, which deals with terms and term limit, is not affected by this charter.
Okay.
And that,
So just, I wanted to make sure of that.
well, yes, it's very
The annual compensation paragraph in 202 currently would be eliminated. Be covered by
Whatever.
proposal,
it would be amended,
right?
as you can see.
Okay, amended.
Right.
Anybody want to discuss the issue, but there should be lifetime term limits?
Well, the 29th.
Well, there are
I
lifetime
would,
term
no,
limits.
No, there are.
yeah,
But do we?
I would be
do we
open
want
to that.
What?
I would be open to removing that.
So with like somebody has to sit out for a term or
Yeah, and they
two,
can come back.
I mean, and just,
I think that makes great sense.
just something else.
Look,
for
we go,
maybe
we
next time.
went 2 hours, you finally said something that made sense, it's great.
Let's do that. Can you,
Don't laugh.
is that,
It only encourages them, Elizabeth, don't let.
I'd like to hear more about it. I'm not sure it's a good. or bad.
that was a charter passed, with the name on it. Or targeting one person, but that person's not ready. Okay, so I think we've done a lot today, guys, so thank you. We've made some
So
substantial
the
changes.
29th,
29th is our next meeting. Ralph and Gene, we can stay and I can just give you some ideas for the latest agenda at least.
I like the
Anybody else need that?
language you came up with, that was,
Okay, good.
you should have started with that.
Yeah, that would save a lot of time.
It's all,
It was simpler, the simple,
Well,
the simple is better
Yeah.
sometimes.
I think that language has failed consistently, so I don't know.
Well, we can only propose and it's.
Yes, Sam has adjourned us again. He's got a record on that. I mean, he's got a running record.
So it is 7:51. Thank you, everyone. I'm turning off the Zoom. Thank you.
we have a